And podcast is ready to go. What up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, shipmates of all ages? I am a servant of my K. What's up? What's up? With me today is my guest for episode 30 of the Cross Your Bow podcast, Mr. Earl Grey. Oh, I'm sorry, Earl Grey.
Nah, yeah, gotta remember that all important I.
Yep, there you go. You guys can hit him up on the Twitter at Earl Grey TV. That's right. Hit him up at the Twitter. Send him all of your questions over there to Earl Grey TV right there, guys. Of course, I am Servant of IK. Man, episode 30, man. This is kind of a milestone. I mean, it's pretty intense. And what better way to have you here? Now, give them a little bit of what do you actually do for wargaming so these people actually know.
Yeah, that's a good question that I often ask myself. So I am in charge of, I guess you'd put me as kind of a liaison between World of Warships as the game and product that we all know and we love so very much.
Oh, yeah.
And the figureheads of the community, such as Savannah IK here.
That's me.
So you can attest to the fact that pretty much any time of day, as long as I'm awake, you can get hold of me. If you have any request, problem, question, you can reach me. Usually via Discord. I've got it on my mobile, and if I can't help you, assist you, answer your question right away, then as first thing I'm back in the office, then it's my priority and job to do so. And the reason I am all the way here in St. Petersburg is if there is a very technical question, I can literally get up from my desk and go and tap the person responsible on the shoulder and ask them directly.
There you go. Hey, he's our CC handler, man. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, so if it's content creation, a common request might be for media materials. I can go to the art department, provide you with a nice flashy professional image. If it's obviously technical questions are popular, such as the upcoming Italian cruises, people got a lot of questions regarding those. I have to sometimes, I think I have to caveat this now. So I'm not a developer. I was a community contributor myself, so my head isn't in the stats and figures, definitely not to the degree such as Little White Mouse or Stuntman or some of those guys who are like Rain Man to me. I don't know how they manage to keep all these stats in their head. I often do cheat, so if there's a dev question, then I'll have on my communication, I'll have the guy who deals with it on a daily basis. Or one of my colleagues in the GPI team, as we're called, the Global Player Interaction, we're sort of split into different departments. So we've got guys who focus on release information. We've got guys who focus on more the mechanics, like the coding. So they will be able to look at AA DPS, for instance. They'll be able to tell me coefficients and that sort of thing. And then we have other guys who are, I've got Sub Octavian, who the community are fully aware of. He's to my left. He'll help me with sort of messaging or more sort of upper management level things, maybe roadmap, what's coming down the line. If CCs need to know what our plans are, let's say an upcoming ranked battle season. Under NDA, we can often release that information early to CC so they can prepare their content. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of channels that come together to me so that then it can then go out to the community in as an efficient and an acceptable way for both the product and contributors. So obviously I can't always be the crystal ball as much as I'd like.
As much as they want us to be, yeah.
Yeah, and I do try.
What is this coming out for? Oh well, hang on. I wrote this down. All right, so the Smolensk is coming out for coal. Well, how much? I don't know. I have no idea. Eventually, we will find out. I can make an assumption here, but that's literally about as far as I can go. So all right. So guys, let's talk about the news that's upcoming. He already talked about it. The Italian cruiser's on its way. Also a Tier 9 rank season that's on its way. Now, Tier 9 rank season. When's the last time you played through a full rank season?
Oh, I did Sprint the other day.
Yeah, nice. How'd you do?
Oh yeah, rank 1. I love Sprint. That's great. Because part of my job, we have to play the game minimum of 50 battles a week. Which,
there you go. See that now, guys. That answers the question: do the developers ever play the game? That was the most asked question that I got. I'm not going to ask him that question. Of course they play the game, man. Jeez. So there you go. A minimum of 50 games a week. So there you go. Confirmed.
Yeah. So you try and fulfill that. That's, well, 10 battles a day because we do Monday to Friday. 10 battles and amongst your normal working day. But I work 10 o'clock till 7 o'clock. So it's quite a long working day. But given that you guys keep me so busy, it's not always easy to fulfill 10 battles. But rank sprint is a nice way, perhaps on a Friday, last thing on a Friday evening. I might stay at work a bit late for a couple of hours and smash out some rank sprint. Still on EU, still playing my EU
Still
account.
playing the EU account. What was your boat of choice?
The last one. Because now I'm thinking of the previous ranked season. Where was it? Damn it. Was it tier 6? The last ranked battles, ranked sprint.
7.
7. Was the previous one 6? I lose track.
I think the previous one was 6. Yeah.
Oh, 7. I specifically stayed away from Belfast.
Me too.
And actually, the Italian, the Abruzzi.
You ranked out in the Bob Abruzzi?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the bulk of my games were. The long-range torpedoes and the slinging the HE across the map was fantastic with that range. Spot a plane, throw that up, and the battleships melted. I really enjoyed it.
Well, that's a rarity. The Bob Abruzzi is not a highly touted commodity in my town. I don't play it very often.
Even I was surprised. Yeah.
Surprise. I actually I braked out in the Colorado. Really nice, slow. Got to get to stay in the middle of the board, and then when the sign-ups go bow up, you can smash them right through the nose. It's really good.
Yeah,
Colorado's good.
And that's the problem with my existence is I've got one foot in the future, and then it's often hard to keep up with what was just in the immediate past. So, and playing through the French destroyers. Obviously, I've got a developer account, so I'm given test ships. A bit like you as well, so often I'll be playing ships that don't even exist in the client. Well, not exist in the client, but aren't open to the player base.
There you go. I know the first rank sprint I ranked out in the Nelson, and I have 2 accounts, one on the Steam, and one on the main account. And we ranked out in the Nelson, and then the Colorado, and then we ranked out in a Hydia, and then the Colorado again for the second rank sprint. Good boats. Yeah, good solid boats. And I found that Epicenter is one of my favorite game modes out there because it pushes people out of their normal comfort zone, and they have to make plays and they have to be tactically sound. And if they're not, then they just lose. Which
Z39 was a surprise for me. I saw a lot of Z39s.
There are a lot of them. The hydro range and those monster AP shells coming out at 150s. I honestly, when I did my picks, the 39 was not very high on my list. With the reload on it being 7 seconds, it's kind of rough. Especially when you're going up against Hydias and Jervises, and it's a rough feel. All right, so that's the ranked sprint. All right, so we got a new ranked 9 coming out. What do you think? Top picks of the battleships, cruisers, destroyers. This is a 6 versus 6 non-CV rank season.
Yeah, tier 9. See, I'm predominantly a cruiser. I mean, I try and stay away from premiums as well as much as I can, partly because there's kind of an internal rivalry where obviously we all know that certain ships form well. For instance, like I try and stay away from Alaska, perhaps from tier 9. I don't actually have that many tier 9s left. I've got Kronstadt, so I would probably take Neptune. No nationality bias whatsoever.
Radar Neptune, or what I like to call man mode Radar Neptune, or smoke.
Yeah, Neptune. I like my Radar Neptune.
Yeah. It's so good out on a corner. It's so good out on a corner.
Yeah, you're going to be hugging islands for the most part anyway. The maps tend to have enough island cover for me, so I think that utility of the radar lighting it up for my comrades is useful.
Me, I'm a 46 guy. I'll be starting out in the Z46 just to kind of counter everything. But the top strongest DD at the tier is the Jutland is probably the strongest at the tier. And then now that the Benham is out there, you're going to have a bunch of ding dongs flinging peds all over the place, and
definitely.
that's
I think
about all they're
Fletcher
going
will
to
still
do.
have its place. Fletcher's pretty strong.
Fletcher's
I
real
expect
strong.
to see a lot of Alsace.
As for battle,
Lions, of course.
the Lion, I feel bad about this, but the last rank season full that we had with the tier 10, I had ended up ranking out in the conch. I was so mad. I was so
filthy.
mad. But
I think I tried the conch a couple of times.
Yeah. I think it was interesting, though. I played 63 games in it, and I played 40 games in it. I had a 63% win rate after I went to the Conqueror, and then just ranked out, and I was like, and I only saved half of my stars on the losses. So,
see, I didn't have such good luck in my Conqueror. I don't know, maybe those games were cursed. So it was with a sort of rueful smile that I heard the Twitch streams and saw the YouTube videos. It was mostly the Twitch streams where people were like, yeah, I'll just go in the Conqueror and easy mode it. So I did. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll try the Conqueror, and it wasn't easy mode. Maybe I was just cursed with bad teams.
I don't know. I think that's a lot of people are like, I can't do this, man, blah. But anyway, the rank season starts on August 8th and ends in September the 3rd. So you have a pretty good chunk of time to rank out. And I know people are going to get to rank 5 and they're going to stall out and they're going to go 5 to 6 and then 2 to 3 and it's such a thing. It's just where I've always attested that it's not a test of skill. It's more of a test of patience. Can you weed through all the terribleness to finally get
definitely
on a streak?
A war of attrition.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't even have a gaming PC at home, so I'm limited to actually playing at work. So that's where I get all my warships fixed. And I think the last full ranked season, I've only made it to like rank 10 in the time frame. When you try and do it with 50 battles a week, maybe, as I say, on a Friday I can squeeze some more in. But yeah, I tend to not be able to get much further than rank 10.
It's a lot different than it used to be, I mean, at any point in time now, I can stream from 1 to 24 hours. I mean, that's all I do. I mean, you have obviously working obligations and other things that you have to take care of, so you don't get as much playtime. So, but there you go, guys. We're hanging out with my man iearlgrey. You guys can hit him up over on the Twitter at iearlgreytv. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that we're about to talk about today, you guys could go ahead and answer VenomIK right there into the chat, and I will copy pasta them over to a sheet, and then we will address them at the end of the show. I do appreciate you guys for hanging out. Hey, man. Hey. That's all we expect, man. Do your most average. Do the most average, and then nobody can be like, well, he's just an average guy, and they really can't hurt on you if you do something wrong. All right, so guys, let's get to know Earl Grey just a little bit better, boys. We're going to go into the 9 questions of averageness. Question number 1: how did you find World of Warships?
This was back in the heady days of Twitch streaming. And I started out streaming a variety of games, partly because I didn't really know what I was doing on Twitch. It was a dare from a friend to start streaming. He was like, "Oh, look at this! These guys are making money doing that. I reckon you could do that." I was like, "What's Twitch?"
Yeah.
Back in England, we call Twitchers people who watch birds. They're Twitchers. So yeah, I thought I'll get on this funny computer business, and I think I played a couple of rounds in World of Tanks, and of course someone, because I was playing World of Tanks, someone dropped in who was a tanker and said, I've just played this alpha or beta of World of Warships. Have you thought about giving that a try? And it was one of my viewers. And I thought, yeah, okay. And then that was it. I was stuck.
Hooked in.
The tiering system got me hook, line, and sinker. We only had US and obviously Japanese. Lines back then. And yeah, I was having so much fun with Clemson down those low tiers. I was hooked.
Seal clubbing, man. Seal clubbing.
Warspite came out, I think around beta time, and it was just shortly after, and that was my first premium that I bought. And then I was hooked because I was just waiting for Bismarck to come out for me to smack in my Warspite.
It's been a while. It was a long wait. It was a long wait because I know the
It
first.
was.
I was unable to get. I didn't get into the alpha, and I was unable to get into the closed beta, and I didn't even do the open beta. So it was. It was right before, probably a good 3 or 4 months before the German battleships came out when I first started playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been
Yeah.
a while. So I missed out on the Iwaki Alpha and the Arkansas Beta and that whole
I
that.
missed out on those too.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sad about that too. Because anytime that they do an event, we just did an event over here on the NA. I always have to get my games in those boats because they're so strong. They're so good.
Hmm.
All right. So well, that kind of answers the next question too. What was your motivations to start streaming and then moving over into the YouTube?
I'm moving over into YouTube. Well, yeah, there was motivation streaming. The other motivation was, as I said, I'd done the variety thing on Twitch, and it'd been Elder Scrolls was one game that captivated me, and then I sort of got a loyal following. But once I'd fallen accidentally into warships, I quickly noticed on Twitch that there was a solid community that was small, but was absolutely fantastic, and it just kept growing, and I could see the growth potential there, and Ship Comrade at the time was pretty active, and the community contributor program was just coming into being. So all the signs were pointing that this was not just a good game community, but it was a fantastic Twitch community as well. And I still maintain, I think, in my experience as a streamer and having been in the Twitch community, it's one of, if not the best Twitch community out there, especially for hosting, raiding, supporting. Everyone knows everyone
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. I'd never known anything like it, and I still can't find any other game that surpasses the World of Warships Twitch community. So that's what kept me on it. And then the YouTube thing was kind of due to being a father. So Twitch takes a block of time out of your day. You can't pick it up and put it down. The other aspect I both enjoyed and was frustrated by. Initially, Twitch was a technological challenge for someone who didn't have much money. I borrowed a monitor from my friend. I sold my air rifles that I had. I built up a collection of some vintage air rifles. So I basically sold up everything. And I had an AMD FX 4350
Nice.
processor to begin with. I later on then used the 8350 for streaming, and then the 4350 became essentially my capture card. So our Twitch community donated collectively, I think it was about £100, and then I built a really basic Linux PC to capture my NVIDIA output. So using OBS, I kept it with NVENC, which at the time was really inefficient. So it was streaming at 30,000 kilobits a second. I used my laptop to begin with to then spin it down using Ubuntu and Nginx to then spin it down to the 4K sort of Twitch thing. And of course, this was back in the day before affiliates and stuff. You couldn't get transcoding. So on iearlgrey.tv, I would multicast using the Nginx server, not restream.io. I would then have the YouTube transcoded stream, and then beneath that, the Twitch chat. So people in poor internet areas could still watch and still chat on Twitch. So I sort of circumvented the partnership privileges.
You sure did.
And then World Warships came on, and then I rose to partner level, which is something to also observe with the Twitch community. Is most people that give Warships their time on Twitch generally become partnered pretty quickly because that loyalty and that viewership. So I really scraped by. Didn't steal, but I begged and borrowed and saved up and scraped and sold as much as I could to get that technological challenge fulfilled, which I loved. Learning to code an Nginx server, that was nothing I ever thought I'd ever do, but trying to learn Linux. Then the green screen stuff and all the gadgets. I love gadgets, so I had that aspect. Then YouTube was a way to then extend that further, because on Twitch you're rooted to your desk generally. Mobile streaming wasn't really a thing. YouTube allowed me to then go out into the great wide world. Then my mind started racing and spinning on all the potential things I could do.
All
So
the ideas start flowing.
yeah, then all the gadgets followed. Like even now, then mobile phones, started becoming their own streaming platforms.
Yep.
Now you can edit videos on smartphones, and we're only talking what 3 years, 3 years of technological development in just the streaming area and
I find
stuff
it
like this. Is
I find it very interesting because when I first started streaming, it was just you had to have a computer and hopefully and pray
mm-hmm.
that you had enough money to afford a second monitor, so you could actually do
Mm-hmm.
some things on the second monitor. I really enjoy what they've done, but it makes it very accessible to anybody now. Go get you a Stream Deck. Okay, and then you can
Yeah.
do switching scenes and you put your emotes on a button and man, it makes it so much easier. And I wish that this stuff would have been there back when I first started.
Yeah, but I enjoy the challenge of it not existing because back
Mhm.
when I first started, you didn't have stingers. I mean, this is something
Yeah,
I only learned the other day.
stinger transitions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
these amazing things. I
animated.
remember coding HTML to do that for
Yeah.
me and having all these horrible back end fixes to the one thing that I was always striving for, even though I knew I was on a horribly low sort of budget compared to the big guys at the time. And by big, that could be 1,000 followers to me when I started on
Uh,
Twitch. Those were the big guys. When you saw their green screen sort of thing, I knew that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly, which is why I dual booted my laptop to, which was an old one at the time, to then act as a capture card for me to give the best quality sort of stream on Twitch that I could possibly squeeze out of all my resources. And then once you're in OBS, then I used to love all the bells and whistles. Now I was never going to be doing like a cinematic transition or anything, but with a laugh, sort of doing like the news, the BBC background with spinning stuff and all that. I just loved the challenge of it all. And there was always an additional challenge, an extra layer of either humor or production or even like a spinner, just like picking a winner for a giveaway
yeah,
using a spinning wheel.
the
It was
little
a
wheel.
stupid little thing, but coding a
The
wheel
wheels,
was
man.
hilarious.
The
Yeah,
wheel
now they're
spins.
commonplace.
In all fairness, I came from a community, Diablo 3. In Diablo 3, I think when I first started streaming and playing, everybody had a wheel. Like literally everybody had a wheel, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're gonna give away gold and blah blah blah, and then you can, yeah, and then Diablo kind of shifted from the third party focus to only focus, and that kind of killed a lot of. Honestly, that killed a lot of streams because they had no content, and you really saw who the strong streamers were as people were giving things away, and it was the only reason why people were there. Once they quit, they had no content for them, so it was kind of interesting, dynamic when I'm first starting out. But yeah, this just goes to show you guys that you don't have to have all the fancy bells and whistles. You don't have to go spend $400 on the
Definitely.
Go XLR mixer to be a successful streamer. You
No
can,
way, I'd love to. I'd
oh
love
yeah,
to get that mixer. That's so beautiful. I still look
it's
through all the
nasty.
streaming gadgets. But that's the thing now, we've got shadow play and stuff with an improved NVENC encoder that almost doesn't need any further processing to it. I was speaking to a guy way back from my early days of streaming who messaged me saying, oh, I've finally saved up. I've got OBS fired up. How do I do this? I was like, dude, you don't even need OBS now. Just do Alt-Z. And then you can even set up a web camera. And to be honest, you don't need a web camera. If you look around on Twitch, some of the biggest guys don't use cameras. People want to see you play the game, usually because they're at work and they can't. They don't want an adulterated layout sometimes. Now, I preferred a web camera because my personal preference as a viewer was if the human being made the stream. So if I could see and read your facial expressions, your personality, I wanted to connect with you as a human being. It didn't matter so much about the game that you were playing. I wanted to have a laugh with that person. So without the webcam, for me, just personal preference, it felt a very dead, cold stream. There was, for me, that blocker. But I guess that's just how different human beings are.
Different personalities. My own personal thing is it's hard for me to. I can't do a stream without a camera anymore. I've done it for so long, and when I go into somebody who has a camera on, it's like they're bringing me into their world. This is my
There,
world.
yeah.
Welcome to my world. And without it, you just kind of have to go with what you see and what you hear, and that extra sensory and input it just makes it so much better for me. All right,
But
yeah,
one person, as a case in point, was a quickie baby. He didn't have a quickie. Didn't have a green screen for years. It was just his webcam to one side of his front living room. And ironically, now he has a green screen. He uses a picture of his old living room as the background, which I think is hilarious.
that's clever.
But he's basic, and he's one of the biggest streamers out there.
All right, I know a couple other guys. Moon, and doesn't have a webcam. Never used one, and he 18, 20,000 people every time he fires up, and I'm like, wow,
Sometimes the air of mystery is beneficial, though,
Oh yeah.
because then other people who've then got a webcam, I'm like, oh, I preferred it when I didn't know what you looked
Right,
like.
exactly. All right, so being a YouTuber and a Twitch streamer, and now working for Wargaming, what do you hope to contribute to the company?
Right. So I was very clear about this. It was a bit of a strange journey to Russia,
Yeah.
but it came about from visiting. I was invited to Tank Fest, and there I met the guys from the EU office, and one of them then poked me when I mentioned in one of my YouTube videos that I'd just randomly been laid off from my job one morning. She said, "Oh, why don't you apply for this?" It was one of the web content vacancies over in Paris. I thought, yeah, cool, Paris. My kids are in England. It's only a short, sharp hop. Things have gone south on that relationship front. So I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Um, it didn't. I looked at the job, although I was qualified for it. On paper, is IT had been my thing and web design had been my thing. I didn't think I fitted the job, and I don't think the job fitted me either way. It just didn't feel right, sit right. But I obviously made enough of a positive impression in that interview, and the very fact that I applied pinged up on Sub Octavian's radar, and he then the response was kind of humorous. It was kind of like you haven't got the job, and we understand that you said that you don't want it, but we think you'd be perfect for this job instead. I was like,
There you
cool.
go.
So they were like, kind of like, Sub Octavian's kind of glad you didn't get the job, if you understand. I was like, yeah, oh, wow, yeah, wow. A door closes, a window opens. So then it ended up with an interview over in St. Petersburg, and I ended up out here. So it was a bit strange, but I was very clear that from the description of the job and my perception of what it would be like, I thought, yes, there were blockers and problems I had as a CC. But of course, I felt that I could now bring that perspective to wargaming, and I said as much. Such as back in the day with regional CCTP program embargoes, they had them regionally, and people would make mistakes, or even communication within wargaming wasn't there, so that sometimes embargoes would lift at different points. Now, obviously, that isn't completely annihilated now as a problem. We sometimes have some
We still
hiccups
see a
on
few
that front.
here and there.
Yeah, I think the human error is going to play a part. But as you know full well, I will give all regions, all CCs, a uniform embargo date on there, and it's clearly in the Discord, and it's clearly stated. There is that global and unified communication. I'm the point of contact for the most part, except for languages being
Right.
a sort of different one. So everyone can sort of sing off the same song sheet, and it just little improvements like that as a content creator. So I already hinted on it that sometimes I'll give Savanum a heads up on maybe it's the devlog that's coming out. Just some forewarning and forearming so that CCs can just have either in their mind mentally or actually physically then prepare and publish videos just to make their life that much better. Little things that go a long way when you're essentially, certainly for full-time content creators, you are a self-employed business person.
Yeah.
No one likes to say it. It's a swear word on Twitch. It's a swear word on YouTube that people do it for money. Sorry, but that's kind of life. And
I'm very open. I'm very open with that side of it. Anything that I can tell them, I usually do tell them. when it comes to financial things and stuff like that. Just in the guise of full disclosure, I guess.
Yeah, there's that, but and I think if you take your approach, which I applaud, people can actually, and I hope that your audience certainly do, appreciate that you are your own advertising and marketing department. You're your own IT and tech department. You're your own accountant. You're your own. These are a lot of cymbals and drums. You're banging. You're a one-man band. You're literally putting on a show in the day, but your brain doesn't switch off once you hit end stream. Maybe you're trying in OBS a new Stinger transition, trying to get that to work. Maybe you're reading through Reddit, dev blog, things like this. Maybe I remember back in the day, I was simply playing more warships off stream to grind the next ship so that the next day on stream I had a new tier to show off. Maybe I'm replying to tweets, or maybe I've been approached by a company that wants me to play their game, going through your emails or things like this. There are so many aspects that a self-employed person has to go through that I don't think is fully appreciated, or maybe it's just dismissed because you're seen as being in a privileged position.
I think that is a factor, but I also think that people just don't know what it takes to be a streamer, and the things that you have to do. You have to be tech support. You have to be IT. You have to be the graphical artist, and that's all in that same realm. And people will do what they have to do to make it worth it for them.
It can be crushing pressure. Then if you throw in a family, then if you even throw in a partner, the needs of a partner as well into that mix. Now, that's not unique to streamers, of course not. Everyone has that. But these are all factors and things that you throw in. Then if you're lucky, you have a social life as well of friends. To be fair, I chose not to go out into the town where I lived. I didn't particularly think the people had much to offer me. Maybe I'm an aloof son of a bitch, but
I'm
Stroud
way,
in
man.
Gloucestershire.
I'm that same way, dude.
Some idiots out there who just really used to rub me up the wrong
man.
way. And I didn't have time or energy for them because I was giving all my energy on the stream as well. So I didn't need to go down the pub, every Friday or Saturday because I was excited to be researching the latest technology, or maybe my encoding settings just aren't quite right. Maybe I can get a crisper image. Maybe I should do 60 frames per second instead of 30. Just weird stuff like this. That's really draining and can be.
It's a mental tax. I know. Me and my wife, we've been married 20 years now, and
wow,
I've been streaming for the last 5 years, and it was kind of a I kind of lucked into a lot of things, and this just the timing hit. I got fired from a job for no reason, so I had about 6 months of unemployment, and just got into a real bad depression of just like anything that I do, it doesn't matter, just that I'm just a loser, kind of attitude there. And my wife got promoted at work, and I was staying at home taking care of the kids, taking them to school, doing the being the house guy. And I was like, man, I'm just gonna start up the show. And bam, one Christmas, I remember that Christmas, my man, one of my longtime viewers showed up at my house, and he said, here's a computer, start a show. And I was like, okay. And so I got lucky there, and then we lucked in, just kind of backed our way into the World of Warships community, and then some key people had to move, or they went on deployment or something like that, and we were there when they were gone, and we just kind of gained a following, and we ended up making partner out of that, and just the timing hit, and I was just like, okay, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. So here I am 5 years later, and it took a while, but we finally figured it out.
But we've talked about like some of the stresses and strains, and then the lack of social life. Now, I never felt as a human being I was lacking in social because I had a buzzing Discord. I had guys I can literally talk to as we are now. So the human interaction wasn't a problem. Maybe I didn't get enough sunlight, vitamin D. But in my own job, obviously, I deal a lot with influencers, and I keep my eye on social media and a lot of that. But we've had even PewDiePie recently and Jack Black raise money for mental health and content creators. Now, And this is where I think this is where the wild west of Twitch and YouTube and content creation, which has, let's face it, really mainly exploded in probably the last 3 to 5 years. It's such a new thing, and I don't think new people or even existing people fully understand and appreciate the potential stresses and strains and the impact it has on their life. And I think the main flaw that they're hitting is, as I've said, you can get so excited, you can get completely focused on a lot of things. Maybe you're chasing fame, but that could be the shallow thing that people might be happy to dismiss and label it. But for me, it wasn't about fame or fortune. It was just getting wrapped up in, well, how can I challenge myself in another way? Oh, cool. I love gadgets. How can I employ this gadget? I've got a shopping list going on. Or how can I make better use of the resources I've got? I was generally like, you have that electric buzz in your chest and your brain. You can't sleep at night, which is not a bad thing because you're just enthused. You can't wait to fire up the stream again the next day to show off what you've discovered, what you've trialed, what you've spent till like 3 o'clock in the morning testing the previous night. And it's fantastic, but it all comes at a price. And that's where I think some people are falling foul of it. But all that said, don't want to put people off. I would love to see more World Warships players just firing up shadow play, not worrying about anything. Just get a half decent microphone. Obviously make sure that your rig can handle it, but even then, Warships doesn't take much resources, especially not compared to other games. Now with technological advances, both hardware and software, it's never been a better time. Not it doesn't matter about money or whatever, but just to get in there and get involved in the community and get creating content, even if it's just having a laugh and you in division with friends, because we all want to see people enjoy themselves.
Absolutely, and you never know. You never know, man. You might want to just one day start up a podcast. I mean, that's kind of what it was here.
Yeah.
I was like, man, you know what? I see podcasts, but there's none on Twitch. So
I could do that.
Yeah, I can do that. So let's do it. So we found something that I thought was lacking or something that I wanted to see, and we started up the show. So question number 4, what has been your biggest setback, and how have you overcome said setback?
It surprised me actually. My dad's death really smacked me because I didn't live with him as I grew up. I was adopted as a kid from about 6 years old. So I was born in London, lived with my nan and granddad. We were taken away from my birth mum, she fell off the road somehow. She hit the booze. So we were taken off there and then put in a kids' home. Then we were adopted by school teachers. When I say we, it was myself and my sister from 6 years old. So I didn't even know that this guy was my birth dad until a DNA test was run around sort of 7 years old, I think. And it was all really, really bizarre. So this guy who I thought was my uncle, and I still called him my uncle for the rest of his life, pretty much. He was only sort of towards the end that I called him dad.
Right.
But this guy was a big part of my life and had acted as my father. Because I didn't really have one. The guy who was married to my mum disappeared, and he'd always kind of been a father figure anyway. So then later on, obviously, my kids were born and grew up. He did visit up from London to Gloucestershire now and then, or generally in communication, but not every day. You might talk to them sort of twice a year, a birthday and Christmas. But he passed, and then it was crazy because you always think you've got tomorrow. Yeah. I remember when he rang me saying that I've got the cancer. I was like, okay then, we'll fix it. It'll be fine. No problem. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm London, got the best hospitals around. I think when he was saying it, he was reassuring himself. But at the time, I was like, no, of course you got the best people available in England to you. Cool. I look forward to seeing you through the other end. If you need anything, let me know. If you want us to come visit, just say the word. And then sadly, 6 months later, it was around Christmas time. I said, look, should we come visit? And it's one of those hard things where he'd lost a lot of weight and was looking very bad.
Mhm.
So then, in his pride, he didn't want people to visit. Whereas I thought if he could meet my daughters, that sometimes gives people a reminder of what's to live for, what's to fight for.
That's right.
But he didn't want to. I guess it's that old school pride of the previous
I
generation
don't
of
want
this
you to
sort
see
of
me at my weakest.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm weak right now. I should be a strong man. I'm not. So I respected his wishes when I kind of wish now that I'd forced mine through and just,
Yeah.
I'd known best for you. And here's the little one that you love so much. So unfortunately, we saw him just when my aunt said, "Look, you got to come now because then he's got long left." And then seeing him look like my granddad, that just fucked me up in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
can imagine.
"What?
I can
This
imagine.
guy? Yeah, my granddad died when really young. That's sort of like I think
Yeah.
12 years old. So that had been long gone. And that hit me hard because, again, he'd been a father figure to a young boy growing up. Then to have my old man then look like my granddad on his deathbed, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But I was so busy because then YouTube was growing. Um, I'd been to Wargaming's tournament, the World of Warships tournament. We'd won that one against the Germans. So I had a great time being flown by Wargaming to Poland. Then another company wanted me to go out to Berlin to lecture at a conference. It was actually towards mobile games, but it was more about how companies can work with influencers. And I was kind of lobbying for the fact that no, don't go for the guy with hundreds, millions of people. Actually spread your money across the smaller guys
Yeah.
because in my point of view, in my experience, they're more dedicated, sort of loyal followings. They're more engaging, more interactive with those viewers, and viewers are more likely, like certainly on my stream, I used to be very interactive and actually involve people in games and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
So we'd play like Insurgency, I think was a cheap game we all bought, and everyone picked it up on Steam for like £1, or I gave copies away, and we all got engaged in the game. So I was kind of putting the case to these guys that if you're more intelligent with your spending, you could most likely get better conversions and results. That's actually a sort of ethic and ethos that I think has actually spread out organically now. I seem to be one of the first to sort of identify it. And one of the devs came up to me later. He's like, "Oh, I never thought I'd hear that from a YouTuber." We kind of look at influencers as showmen, not as analysts. Whereas you've obviously analyzed your metrics and data and looked at it from a business perspective. Again, it's a bit of a swear word. People go, "Oh, Gray's a sellout" or whatever. But no, I was curious. I was interested in marketing. You want to know what content works, what gets you best views, and you can understand from developers' point of view, they're selling a product, so they want to know how best to sell it and who are the best salesmen, if we dare call people that. But there's a reason people are called influencers, and I understood that. Yeah, going back to the question. Sorry, I keep going on
No, that's
tangents.
fine.
Um, yeah, it was my father's death, and then I was so excited with Twitch. I didn't really acknowledge it. I didn't stop to take full stock of that impact. So I lost myself in work, as many people do. I became a bit of a miserable git to be around because you gave all your energy to the stream. Then, like I said, you've got this big schedule. So to be fair, I wasn't the most social. My best buddy, used to kind of force his way into the house because he'd message me, "Oh, do you want me to come up?" I'd be like, genuinely, "Look, I love you, dude, but no, I don't want you to come up. I'm quite happy just on my own. I'll
Yeah.
message you on the phone because I can put the phone down and I can just go to bed whenever I like. But if you're here, I've got to make you a cup of tea. I've got to talk to you, ask about your day and how your life is. And I'm not even sure about how mine is. So, I can be a miserable git when I want to be.
I,
So,
I'm pretty lucky on that front. The One of my oldest moderator, Shadow Sins. He's the guy that brought me the computer, and we live in the same town, and he works whenever he's off work. We always try to get together and go eat lunch or something like that. And so I totally understand that concept. But there's times that I'm like, yeah, you know what, dude, I just want to be alone. I'm good.
yeah,
And he's like,
yeah.
I'm coming over anyway. You're just gonna just accept it. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
my
come
buddy
on.
Luke
Let's
did
have a
that as
good
well.
time. Let's chit chat. Let's see how everything's going. All right, let's go. Question number 5 here. From WoW's player to streamer to YouTube guy to working over at Wargaming. What have you
Mhm.
learned in your journey about our community? What has changed in the game community and the streaming community altogether?
Wow, yeah, I think we've covered a lot of that.
Yeah, pretty much.
What have I learned? As we've said, sort of technology has been absolutely fascinating. Um, I've um, there, I've got a unique perspective where I'm kind of stuck between two sides. So I'm now experiencing both sides of the coin, both sides of the screen. So um, one thing I've learned is the fascinating amnesia that the community has. So you will hear them clamor and beg for a certain change. I've watched as that change has been implemented, and then within a week to a month later, people have forgotten that change has been implemented, and almost clamoring for the opposite. And when you actually keeping track of the evolution of things, especially sort of on the likes of Reddit and things, I think someone made a joke post today where it's kind of like Reddit was acknowledging its own amnesia, where people obviously things are cyclical. And I'm not saying wargaming are perfect and they get everything right, but it's sometimes, and it's human nature to complain. God knows I'm British, so we'd love to complain about the buses being late and all that, anything negative we can find. But it's seemingly like, oh, we need this change. Okay, here you go. Yeah, well, you should have done that in the first place, shouldn't you? So, oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah,
We gave you the
it's yeah. I
change.
mean,
Thank you.
and not that I expect to be, clapped on the back and
Right.
hailed the whole company to be hailed as heroes when maybe the port UI has been updated. Or the carousel has an extra filter on it. I don't expect everyone to be dancing in the streets, but at the same time, maybe it causes a knock-on problem, or it's that side's been quite comical and pretty funny to watch. Uh, but yeah, I've learned a lot on being sort of both sides of the coin. I was always quite moderate in my opinions, which nobody likes on Twitch or YouTube. People want drama. People
You,
love drama,
you
and
either
drama
like it or you
generates
don't.
clicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if a guy like Zoop's probably one of the other examples on YouTube. If a guy is quite moderate, middle of the road, he kind of sees both sides of the coin. And someone like Zoop's, he's a veteran, so he's seen a lot in life. You can expect someone like that who's also he's an army vet, isn't he? He's like a major in the army.
Some kind of
He's
National Guard or something. I'm
yeah,
not quite sure.
no, I'm not sure. He's mentioned it in his videos, but obviously here's a guy who's kind of paid to be quite measured and thoughtful and considered in his reactions and responses, to do to calculate all eventualities. So in his videos, I'll watch. He'll go, "Oh, well, I don't like this, but maybe there's a reason behind this down the line." So there's often the approach I took as well. So I can see myself in Zoop. But if Zoop and Zoop will understand me. But if Zoop just went ham on the One Direction, picked his side and went ham on it, he'd probably have double the number of subscribers. If he was like, "This is outrageous."
Well, there's some.
How can people do that?
I know we got some boats in the testing right now that I feel are pretty out. Well, at least one of them is pretty outrageous. But
Sure, sure.
and I think that I'm not the only one that has that same feeling about the Colbert and the Smolink skin, and
Now
how
you're touching on something else.
but that's basically. I have tried to play it kind of middle of the road for most of the time, but man, I play with so much emotion, and I play with so much like, okay, I'm ingrained in this game, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not ingrained in the game, but so much
Invested.
invested. There you go. I'm invested in the
Mm-hmm.
game. Every game is different, and that's why it's kept me playing for 3 years. Is
Mm-hmm.
that and I'm like, oh no, and I get so upset at different things that I And after playing for so long, you kind of see the little flaws. Okay, well, why is this way? This shouldn't be this way. It should be this way instead, or you know. And I boy, and if I get that, and that's the reason why I die, man, I just get so upset at that, and I'm like, why is this a thing? Rah!
I can remember my absolute outrage. That like, again, there's things that will just trigger us all, and there's little times that we just, even the most calm and measured people just lose it sometimes. And for me, there were two things. One, I genuinely did think RPF was the wrong way to go, and I thought, nope, this is awful. You know, never before did you have that information that the Shimakaze was creeping around the side, but now it's game breaking. That, you know, that cruisers can have this information. How dare it be introduced? And it was a complete non-issue. Yeah. Then the other one, like, well, not complete non-issue, but it's a, as Wargaming said at the time, as World Warship said at the time, no, it's going to require an investment in points that you're not going to use frivolously. And they were actually turned out to be right on that. The other one was we were given the Royal Navy cruisers to test. And I made a massive compilation that went from tier 1 to tier 10. I spent hours on this video, and it was a masterpiece in my eyes. And I hit publish on YouTube, and it started clocking up some views. And the next day, they announced they'd be taking away HE from them.
No.
And I had the glorious Minotaur raining fiery death down. And I was like, no, why are you tying one hand behind the back of Royal Navy cruisers? They're like, this is an insult to one of the proudest navies in the game, the navy that should have been in the game from the beginning. How dare you? And yet, of course, yeah, Royal Navy cruisers are both sort of feared and respected in the game. They have their unique trait and flavor and quality, and they found their niche and place. And I enjoy them as they are. And I know that 2 years ago, content creator me would have wanted to punch me in the face, going, "Oh yeah, wargaming shill."
Well, I mean, hey, you got to pay them bills, right? So, what makes you? What do you say? Question number 6. What would you say that makes you stand out? What meaning? You can apply this to Twitch or to apply it to YouTube. What makes you different, and why should people pay attention to what you have to say?
Well, I'll go back to Twitch, because when I started on Twitch, as we all do, I was looking at what existed already. And it's the same, and I hate to use the business analogy, but I saw Twitch as like a supermarket of products. Mm-hmm. And me as a viewer, I could see as the customer what sort of products I liked and what packaging I liked. And then obviously you then think, where do I fit into this? So Twitch and YouTube, if you think of content consumption, I was analyzing the videos that I watched. I would watch them to either be educated or entertained. Now, I was not skilled enough to do the education. My memory isn't good enough to remember statistics, so I couldn't fit the education. But I knew I could fit the entertainment, I reckon. I thought I could, and I had fun trying to. I saw a lot of egos on Twitch at the time. Of
Still there.
Some of the top games. Some egos do, yeah, sure. And egos have their place, and people gravitate to these egos. But I could never offer that top level thing. But being British as well, I picked a time slot that was good for me, but it happened to be North America's morning. So I was aware where the biggest audience was, and I knew that if I streamed when the big American streamers that clocked on in the American evening were in bed and not streaming, I could fill that void of some of the bigger World Warship streamers. Yeah. So I adapted my time zone. And then obviously I used my sort of British charm, so to speak. I hammed up the voice. I did the old, here's the Earl Grey news. So you sold that product and that image, and we had a good laugh about it. And I wasn't, again, I'm a bit nervous about how much I confess here. I didn't give a shit about things that much, to be honest. I was, like I said, I had great fun in the Clemson. I think in my Nicholas, I've still got the Twitch clip highlighted of me just ramming a battleship and Nagato, I think. I was very happy to throw a game if needed, just to have a chuckle, just to have a good old laugh. I
I mean,
remember
hell,
friend.
we do $5 up the middles on Two Brothers, man.
I know, and I'd get the YouTube comments later on highlights like this. Oh yeah, I've still got the YouTube video when we took tier 1s and tier 10. So we had the Montana and 2 Hashidatis, and we followed the Montana, and it was on Two Brothers, I think, because I snuck up the middle of that channel and tried to cap them out, and the Midway came and dive bombed me to oblivion. But I managed to avoid all the shells. And of course, on YouTube, people were like, you're the problem with the game. Failed divisions, tier 1s and tier 10s is irresponsible. You should know better as a community contributor. Maybe I would. But as you know, as a streamer, you should know better. That made me laugh. I really didn't
That's
care.
hilarious. You gotta make, come on, man. It's all content, bro. It's all
Officially,
content.
of course, it was absolutely wrong, and I don't advise any streamers to behave in that
way. All right. So number 7 is who influences you as a person to go to that next level, albeit a person, family member, artist, a book, a movie, something that gets your going.
Well, if we think of literature, some of them, certainly most recently for me, Henry David Thoreau was quite a big influence on me with nature. I loved his perspective on life, and there's a paper, an essay he wrote, Civil Disobedience, which I also really respected, which was kind of about, certainly in American civilization was growing, and again, my memories let me down. I'm not sure if the independence had been gained or whether Thoreau lived at a time just before that. But this was a fledgling community on the other side of the world where people had the power to shape it as they saw fit. So they come away from the tyranny that they had escaped behind them. This is what I'm imagining and what I sort of interpreted from his text. And I think it's him that even was quoted as, a government serves its people, not the people serving the government. There were a lot of truths, certainly even about the capitalist system, about its exploitation and so on, that were identified by Thoreau 200 years ago, that I was amazed and quite saddened to see still exist today, and that people haven't adjusted to or even identified or acted on, or they just tolerate because it suits. This was a guy living in a world that fascinated me, in nature that was at the time unspoiled, and there's still vast parts of the North American continent that remain as wild. Chris McCandless, the story Into the Wild as well. I loved all these wild things. So Russia for me was perfect. I've got Siberia just knocking on the door. I can get out. There's still this nature and this tranquility of it. And when I certainly lived in a world where not just the world is quite noisy, but my own bloody mind is noisy. It's like a chainsaw sometimes, and I have to remember to put the chainsaw down, because if I don't, it gets blunt and it doesn't work as properly as it should. So if I can get out to nature, then I can just turn the chainsaw off and I just recharge it, sharpen it a bit, and then come back sort of refreshed. And yeah, those sorts of authors and influences and practices, I don't have like pushing me to the next level. As I said with Thoreau, he kind of preached this just sort of being attitude, and we, in schools, in media, and everywhere, we're always pushed and told that it's dog eat dog. And yet, even in the Twitch community, and Twitch, I always had that attitude as well. There was no competition unless you created it. Right. So I would happily tell people to go watch another streamer. I would happily drop his link in my chat. I didn't care. I wasn't going to badmouth anyone because I don't want to be badmouthed. It's those old school principles I was taught as a kid. You know, do as you would have done unto you, sort of thing. I want support from others, so therefore I need to give support. You reap what you sow. So obviously I'm not a bloody angel in that respect, in any way, shape, or form. But these are just the little philosophies and aspects. So when the question is, what pushes me to the next level, it's more my curiosity to see what adventure life has in store for me next, and just seeing where that road goes. So going back to my job interview, I rationalized it. If I was prepared to move to Paris, which was like this far on the map, well, St. Petersburg is over here, so I'm still moving out of the country. Let's just see what
It's only
Russia
that
has to
far on the
offer.
map. It couldn't be that far away.
Yeah, I know. It's only 2 inches on the map to 5 inches. So what's the problem? And okay, I don't speak the language, but I can learn.
Yeah. And learning, I find something about this game and games in general that keep my interest more than anything else is the learning factor. If I'm continuing to learn and continue to adjust, and I think this game has done a very good job at keeping me entertained, and a lot of these other beautiful people out there in the community entertained at the same time, or regardless of the medium that they get.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, question number 8 here. Any tips to an aspiring streamer, in general, or a ship streamer?
Tips. So yeah, let's keep it kind of general. Yeah, it's the main thing is enjoy what you're doing, because I think I've seen it commented on by others, but it can go back to simple psychology. You know, with your own friends, if you look around, there's people you're drawn to, their energies, and if you're relaxing, you want to be around someone who's either funny, interesting, got a good vibe about them. You don't want to sit next to the miserable asshole who's complaining about his life and his day, because it's draining generally. It's not entertaining usually. So if you're going to put yourself in the public space, imagine you know, and you want to attract other people, be attractive to them, offer those good qualities that people want. If you're funny, be funny. If you're not, that's okay too. If you're just a quiet, likable person, that's okay. Sure. If you're a downright asshole, well, sure, but don't be surprised if you attract assholes into your chat. Yeah,
that's true.
And there's a market for all these different types of people and things, but just try and enjoy what you're doing. I enjoyed Warships, even in bad games. I still enjoyed it in a way. Maybe it gets into this sort of masochism. Maybe there's that aspect when you take out certain ships that like, again, I love a challenge, so I'll happily take a York out. I'll happily enjoy the Krasny Krim. I don't know, I'll have a laugh doing it. Again, we've already covered, don't stress about equipment and stuff. If you're like me, you're going to want the latest gadget. You're going to torture yourself because you don't have a Stream Deck. I still don't own one to this day. And I own a capture card, but I've never got around to using it. Just be comfortable in your setup, make the best of what you've got. Go in it with the right attitude. And like, I never intended to make Twitch a full-time living. It just happened. And if you're doing the right thing, as you, Savannah, you've just testified yourself, then generally the universe rewards you. Yeah, just I can't explain it any other way. Things just happen that confirm to you you're doing the right thing. And if it's not, that's okay too. That's fine. Don't beat yourself up over it. It's okay.
Absolutely. And number 9, your biggest tip for new World of Warships players. I want to preface this by my biggest tip is pay attention to the damn mini map. That's my biggest tip. What would you give as your biggest tip?
I would say biggest tip is don't run before you can walk, and also pick a ship class and stick to it. Now, this is all really good advice coming out of my mouth, and it's advice I can't follow, and I never could. So I went down all the trees that were available at the time, and I still am actually. I went down all the trees, all the lines, all the types and classes of ship, because I love the variety and challenge, learning it. But the players that do best tend to focus on at least a class of ship, and they tend to master it, and they learn their lessons, whereas I simply raced as fast as I could because I'd spread myself out so thin. I didn't take the time to learn all the unique characteristics or how to get the best out of it. I'd watch streams, I'd watch other stuff. If a player did particularly well, then I would tend to think, well, I could do that, but he got lucky.
Right. Yeah.
And then I'd need to fire up World of Warships and I'd go, oh, you took out the Fletcher, did you? And did really awesome. Well, watch this.
20,000 damage and you're dead in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I rushed B. And I thought I'd spot, but I got radared.
Yeah.
Yeah, same old story, Crimea River. But then
Mhm.
you boot up and do the next one. So yeah, I can be that asshole as well who thinks he can do better than everyone else.
I always tell people I have particular lines of ships that I push people down for new players because they seem to be the most consistent play style throughout the entire line. And that's the Japanese cruisers and the German cruisers. They're pretty consistent all the way through the line, coming from tier 5 and above, because everything at tier 4 and below plays the
Hmm.
same anyway, cruiser wise.
Hmm. Yeah, battleship's too slow for me. Destroyers quite high ceiling, so better to go back to those when you can. I thought cruisers were great for me starting out, and I'd recommend probably the similar lines. Japanese were okay. They were squishy enough to teach you a lesson,
Mm-hmm.
but versatile enough to give you some good games damage, especially Furutaka.
Furry
That
Taco, man, I love
gem,
that boat, man.
Furutaka. Oh, that's so underrated, and yet so devastating in the right hands. You can
Oh yeah,
really carry on that
and it
bad boy.
recently got an accuracy buff too, so I mean it's even better now.
Shh, don't tell everyone.
What? All right. They're gonna break your records on that boat.
Yeah.
Guys, we're hanging
That's
out with
my
my
guilty
man
secret.
Earl Grey. Earl Grey, community contributor, handler, our senior community contributor. What's the
Yeah,
actual
hands-on
title?
puppet master. I think it's player interaction manager.
Player
I
Interaction
think it's
Manager.
called.
There you go. You guys can hit him up with any questions that you have at Earl Grey TV. On the Twitter, if you guys have any questions for him now, we are going to
Twitterins.
go into the community contributor questions. We're going to go into questions a little bit later on in the cast. So if you guys have them, answer Venom IK, and I'll copy pasta them over to a piece of paper, and we will get them toward the end. All right, so let's go into our first topic here today. What do you guys think? Now, I know you're around the office and the little scuttlebutt around the office about the CV rework and how it's been perceived by the company, and where do you guys think that is it in the right place yet? Is it almost there? I mean, I personally, as a player, I think it's pretty close. I mean, it's pretty balanced right now. We went at 8.0. We had a complete flat overhaul, and it was pretty terrible. I'm gonna be honest, it was pretty terrible. The planes weren't dying fast enough. The AA was useless, and you saw the big numbers, 300,000 plus damage games, and then it went the other direction where AA was too high, and the planes weren't being able to get into things, and then we've had a pendulum swinging back and forth, and I think it's almost about ready to settle. But it is in this game is a never-ending balancing cycle. How does wargaming perceive it? How do you perceive it that it's going? Is it going the right direction?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the CC Summit had a presentation from Ivan Kamarov and Sub Octavian. Sir Nelson is Ivan Kamarov's name. The handle. As was explained there, we have obviously the spreadsheet, and then we have the fields. There, we always knew that there'd be that cohort of players who wouldn't like it. So the hardcore RTS fans.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I did empathize with them.
I did too.
I did feel a tiny sense of sadness when I realized my Saipan would be no more. The RTS Saipan I did have as my guilty pleasure. I didn't really play them that much more, but yeah, I then play tested the let's call them the action carriers. I liked it, but again, I was fearful of the change compared to what I knew I could achieve in the old system.
Right.
That said, now I don't miss RTS style. Each the ships sort of at tier 8. I tend to play the premiums there just for variety, and that's something that I did do before. I did play the RTS guys for variety, but often because I'd watch a Twitch stream with Papa de Poopy, or maybe I'd watch a video of Farazelith,
Mm-hmm.
and again, being the slightly competitive guy I am, the sort of casual competitive, I think I could do better than that. Yeah, if he got it in these ships, then I can do it. I mean, your question is how World of Warships sees carriers. We know they have a place in the game. I personally disagree with players that say they should be removed. No, definitely not.
No.
I think they were such a key part in World War II that they'd have every right to be in the game. I empathize with the challenge both from players and from the developers here to get that that magical mythical balance. I agree with your perception, and I think that mirrors World of Warships, the balance guys. That we're not quite there, but we are very close. Now, if I were to give my personal interpretation on how it's been implemented, I would ideally we'd have had a longer testing process on the TST servers. But I think Zoop actually put out a good video today where he sort of looked at this. Now, I'm kind of stuck in the middle, having been a player, and then working for the product and actually talking to the guys whose job it is to do all this. That would have been the ideal thing. I did appreciate, and I do appreciate why that wasn't the case, but it has to be acknowledged. I feel it was too much of a shock to players to put them through.
No.
Too much adaptation. Some people like that, some people don't, and that's to be accepted. There are some upcoming changes that are in the pipeline. They're due to be announced soon, and I'm not going to spill the beans on those. But the fingers are always crossed that the next change is going to be the last one. But that's definitely the case of this one. We very much hope that we can slightly sort of redress things, and certainly have them. We can't ever claim that they're going to be in a perfect balanced state, but in an otherwise acceptable state for as many people.
I know for me personally, at tier 6 I did fine. Tier 6 and below I did fine on the RTS, but at tier 7 you really had to learn. That was where the skill gap was. And I kind of disagreed with taking the RTS only to auto drops at 4 and 5, because you push that skill learning curve back to tier 6, and well, these people are just seal clubbing. Well, then, I mean, we all did it. We all did it. We all do it. And I know, you have those have those people with like 11,000 games in the Bogue air superiority over everything else, and it was very frustrating for new players. So I mean, I kind of understand. Might not like it, but I understand it.
Yeah, the other thing you touched on there is then, as you've got something in testing, once we obviously, as you know full well, we give you guys stuff to test, but just giving CCs, the aircraft carriers, we saw people figuring out things that we just didn't have the time to discover ourselves, or didn't think would ever be employed in this way. Because if you throw in then captain skills and then flags and then the ways that you can buff, debuff, and change skills, there were combinations that were not intended to the degree
I was supposed to say they were broken.
So they got that way.
Yeah.
Now on paper it seems all right, but then okay, what about the actual possibility to drop a torpedo from a squadron of planes and never have the planes enter AA range? That might have been theoretically possible, but what in practice,
practicality it didn't really work.
People might not have thought, it's too far to aim properly. But hang on, you're talking about people who dedicate vast amounts of times to mastering things. So maybe there was some underestimation, or maybe it just caught people out. And CCs and players have a tendency to do that.
Well, I mean, like we were saying earlier, it's like I have at any point in time can stream from 1 hour to 24 hours. So I have plenty of time to just mess with things and figure things out in my own little way. And if I try to break the game, then we have the time to do it. So and then there's other people that are smarter at it, and they pick it up faster than I do. So,
and of course I played it myself, but you've got internal testing, then you go to super test, then CC testing, then you go to closed testing on these servers. And even despite all these testing phases that we just described, which for most branches of ship is probably sufficient, you throw in not just well, it was a new concept as well with new mechanics. There were so many things that, again, people on a closed testing server won't necessarily be the same caliber of player that's playing on the live server.
True.
Won't, there's so things. So there's definitely been some lessons learned from it. We don't. World of Warships doesn't want to repeat that sort of trauma on the player base. But you also then throw in the challenge of removing tiers. So adding going from 4 to 6 to 8 to 10. This is another factor that's sort of having to be accommodated and tweaked and fine tuned. And I think we're getting there. I think we're getting close, considering that challenge. I think the guys have done a pretty good job, and it's definitely more accessible. So it's achieved its stated aims. It did increase the population of CVs, which was also part of the problem and exacerbated the perception, sudden increase in that. But it did make them accessible, far more accessible to more people. So it achieved everything it set out to achieve. Whether it's still doing that remains to be seen, and these changes will hopefully head in the right direction.
I remember somebody saying, I think it was Sub Octavian saying that the player base in the previous CV iteration was 1% of the player base across the entire world. And I'm like, wow, that's like not a whole lot of people that are playing. And I can't remember just a handful of games being double CVs, and and of course I'm of that ilk. Tier 10 CVs never should see tier 8 because because of 3 times I play in the Charlie Martel and a midway comes and one drops me, and I was just so frustrated because my AA wasn't good enough, and it was kind of surprising to me when the 8.0 patch hit and they actually went through with the whole entire rework without well, in my perception, they didn't really try to fix what was wrong with it. The AA wasn't consistent, and it just didn't really, it was either hit or miss. You either hit them or you didn't, and if you didn't, then you were dead, and if you did hit them, then you pooped on all their planes as they were coming through. So it was very frustrating as a player. Now at least now they've kind of accomplished something where you can kind of count on your AA. You're still going to do about roughly half of the squad of damage before they get a drop on you, which I always thought was fine. So overall, it's a lot better. Now, as for the player side or the actual playing the CVs, I don't know, man. I just find it. Kind of find it a little droll. I don't know. That's just my own personal thing. It's very very new player accessible, which I understand that, but I don't see the skill in a lot of the things. And for me, I want to play this boat's hard to play. Okay, well, I'm going to go play that one. That's kind of my attitude when it comes to things. So. But overall, I think the CV rework is going well. Now we just need to fix matchmaking. This is a big thing.
The changes coming in.
This is a big thing for a lot of people, and I remember at Anchors Away Anaheim, Sub Octavian said that the way the game originally had intended to pick matchmaking is that there was very few little tier 10s at the beginning of the game, and they wanted to reward those guys by finding them a match as fast as possible. And then and now that everybody has a tier 10, or a majority of the people have a tier 10, they're still on that same matchmaking breakout to where you're pulling from the tier 10 pool first, and then I believe he said that they were looking at pulling from the tier 8 first. But when it comes to CVs, all we have to do is put in the 5, 7, and 9 again, and that kind of compensates for seeing tier 10 and tier 8 CVs all the time.
Yeah, but we had some matchmaking changes announced not long ago,
right?
In devlog, which were
with percentages.
Which looked like there was some sort of time gating on there as well, where it would be more strict and then would relax sometimes. So there's some evolution that's going on, certainly with the matchmaker. And you've highlighted a case where the game itself has evolved over the years, as have the players, their wants, needs, desires, behaviors, expectations. And the thing to bear in mind is, as I've stressed to CCs at the summit, and I think it's helpful if players can try and keep this in mind, we've got a whole raft of ships on test, and they've already been through the sausage factory that is the production. Now, there are walls in this office, in other departments that you won't see, where there are ships lined up 6 months, a year and a half from now. All this content is filtering down through. So there are there's a whole roadmap which CCs were given just for the next year, which helped those that saw it, that attended. Unfortunately, you weren't one of them, but
I wasn't
as
even
a part of the
invited,
reward for
man.
that, no, you could go speak to your regional manager about that.
Yeah.
But it really gave some perspective as to either why certain changes aren't implemented immediately. So we could make a change, but then if you keep in mind a change down the road, it either wouldn't make sense or it could throw things out of whack or actually exacerbate problems for players. When it comes to improvements, obviously we'll do our best. The devs and the UI guys, the art teams, everyone does their best to address these concerns, and CCs are very useful and helpful in identifying and raising them. But you've got this giant machine with the cogs spinning where it just takes that time to trick down. And I think even in your time in the community program, you've seen how you've reported something to me, like muting F-spam chat things. You guys are asking for this, what, 6 months ago?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I reported it back then, and then I've been chasing it up and following it up. Now, again, you've got the age-old developer problem of squish one bug and create 99.
Right.
So you've got a fix you want to implement, and you've then got to thoroughly test it. And it takes time to put these features in, to overhaul interfaces, and sometimes it has unintended consequences. And when you're talking about a delicate sort of ecosystem, it just takes time for certain things to do. So having patience is something that I'm not always good at. I try and improve on. So as a player and content creator, I did try and keep it in mind. And even as an employee now, as much as I'd like to grant most CC wishes when it comes to game changes and things, that it just isn't possible within a framework of a large successful corporation and game developer who also has a long-term plan of things that have been hinted at.
Right.
People are very quick to complain about certain aspects, and sure, they're pain points now, and you can't dismiss or convince someone that it's not a problem, because trust me, there's a plan. That's not reasonable. But sometimes it is amusing to see certain gripes and complaints and think, I wish I could say something, but you're gonna like this.
Yeah, you're gonna
And
like
so
this
then it's
later.
disappointing when I'm like, come on, Reddit, come on, here it is. Here, yeah, it drops. No mention about that.
No mention at all. Yeah, and it is like, it's the fact that it's no mention at all, and maybe they didn't even realize they got what they did because it's such a minute change. I think that happens. Well, we can actually extend that part over to changes of premium ships, which I thought were a brilliant idea. Something like the Julius Caesar, which has pretty much average damage of a tier 6 battleship, probably deserves to be at the tier 6. So many people, you saw the flack and saw the feedback on that.
Yeah,
so many people were like, yeah, man, this is what I paid for, this is what I want. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, you guys just really missed the point of what this means. And it means that we can fix the Belfast. We can go back and fix the Grimmy and make it sellable again, and get some of these other boats. And we're like, wow, I paid for this. I'm like, okay, well, you don't want broken ships, so shut the fuck up about anything coming out in the future.
That was
or you don't
it was
want
quite
balance
sad.
ships. Yeah.
So there was I'm not saying World of Warships was correct in sort of selling the Giulia Cesare so soon before, but this was a proposal that was community driven. There was something that my team, the player interaction team, had identified. We saw the potential, but we didn't want to just enact it. So it was proposed to the community and to CCs. So we took the time to use the Bruto, was it? Use the test ship tier 6. It understandably, it didn't get such good reviews from the testers. I think I remember watching a Majash video where he was kind of underwhelmed, didn't feel that it belonged at tier 6. This is to be understandable, and forgive me, Majash, I might have paraphrased you too much and maybe even not quoted you quite correctly, but this was generally the sentiment that it shouldn't be potentially facing tier 8.
I believe a majority of the people were in that same deal. But for me, I thought it was fine. I thought the boat, well, that's it's neither here nor there now because it's already been scrapped. But I
Sure,
thought it
it's
was
been
fine.
scrapped, and that's what I found kind of a bit sad about the
Yeah.
Reddit thing. They were all very, well, the greedy cash grabbing bastards shouldn't have sold them in loot boxes at Christmas. Because, well, this, yeah, I can't comment on the monetization decisions that were made, sure, but you're going to cut your nose off to spite your face
No.
just on one ship that was maybe in Reddit's opinion marketed too aggressively or such and such. There's one issue, one ship, one problem. It wasn't that uh, all the ships potentially that could have been changed were maybe they were. Let's say all of them were aggressively marketed in loot boxes beforehand. This sticking point, this pain point that I see on Reddit, but we got a chance to fix it. And yes, I do also see the fact that there is that customer thing where I bought a tier 5 premium battleship and I don't want it changed. That I get it. I get it too. And yet those very same people weren't the most vociferous. The most vociferous seemed to be these people who had a problem with monetization or how something was sold. Even the owners of the Giulia Cesare were like, "Nah, I'm fine with this. Okay, it's a change. I've enjoyed clubbing seals, but for the most part, from what I saw on the forums and Reddit, most owners of Giulia Cesare that purchased it in the premium shop were okay with it for the wider health and benefit of the game, with the idea that yes, if you tinker with my Cesare, then I can buy the Belfast or
we can bring some of these
out
boats
from
back.
retirement.
The Kutuzov, and
Which is specifically with Belfast has a big history for people and big attachment, so more people were willing to do that. But well, we listened to the community on that one, and it's what the community wants, so they'd rather keep them as they are.
All right. Which in my estimation told Wargaming that I don't care what you think about the Colbert and the Smolnings, we're bringing it out because you don't want balanced boats. That's what it says to me. All right, guys.
Now you and I are going to fall out if you start talking about Colbert, because I showed you all the stats
Dude,
from your own testing.
Let me tell you, man. I enjoy the boat. I enjoy it immensely. I love that play style. My favorite boat in this game is the Atlanta. And it has that feel to it, but it's a little ridiculous at this thing. Overall, I have enjoyed the boat, but is it good for the game? I don't know. I guess I have to ask that question.
And that's where you're getting into the feels aspect that I've been asking guys. On the spreadsheet, it might say that the ship is actually one of the weakest that were given out on test.
It is so mentally demoralizing to sit there and have Daka coming at you. And
sure. I've seen it in games when I've been in other ships, and I've seen clan testers, I think, and clan testers are pretty capable guys. Yeah, seeing them, I'm being on the receiving end of them in my Vladivostok. I think a Colbert or Bayard, actually, even a Bayard that came in. But I've been on the receiving end of Minotaurs and things. I don't see too much difference from a Worcester that I've enjoyed using in the previous sort of ranked battles and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but there's perception, and
absolutely,
people don't like it.
In my opinion is that just my opinion, and it doesn't necessarily represent anybody else's opinion. I just know about from what I can see. So let's move on into the next subject here, the Naval Training Center. This is something now, obviously. There's some things out there that we can't talk about, but the only thing that I can talk about is what my perception of this thing is. And I perceive this as a fantastic thing for me personally, because as a content creator, this gives me more content. It gives me loads of time to go back through these other ships. Okay, guys, this week we're gonna play this line, bam, and then let's see how fast we can get it up there, also, while we're doing this, Colbert and Ohio are coming out in that thing that they already released as well. So that's something that something to look forward to, and a reason why you would want to do some of these things. I enjoy the concept of this. I was very glad to hear that they were getting rid of the buffs on the ships, because then that kind of makes it a forcing forcing people, even if even if it was a minute, someone like the legendary mod upgrades, which I still am against wholeheartedly because it is an advantage. Even a perceived advantage, even as minute it is, can whatever. Either way, but I do like the concept behind the Naval Training Center. So can you take us into the basics of it? What you're going to have to do, what you're going to be available to do, and just kind of give it because I mean there's so many assumptions out there of what this thing is going to be. Maybe you can shed some light on what it actually will be.
Yeah, I think the topic's been covered pretty well on YouTube and other stuff. But to give people who maybe aren't familiar with it, the idea is to incentivize revisiting old lines. So it's not just about repopulating lower tiers. It's about, I mean, you can encourage people to enjoy the furry taco, the furu taco. I could tell you it's a great ship, but how many of you are really going to play it for more than a game or two? And actually, no, you might curiously play one game, as I do now. But what if you? I mean, even just now we've just talked about fond memories of grinding up Clemson, of these key ships that stick in your mind. Most of us have sort of ground out lines as they've been released, especially old timers like yourself and I. I'm still grinding up the Russian battleships, but I'm already at Vladivostok. I'm grinding up the French destroyers as well. I've managed to get those. So you're always at the latest and greatest stuff, but the oldies but the goodies, and not all of them are good either. But then they taught you things, or they are reminders of things, and maybe Pensacola, things that used to be bad have been changed and they're better now. They're actually, some people very much enjoy them. So Naval Training Center, as it was known, as it was released, was a way of trying to get players and old timers to revisit some of these long lost glories and these fond little gems, but make it worth their while, because it's not a small undertaking. Now, you've spoken as someone who is a long time player, fully invested. It's fair to say that I think you do this for a living, kind of.
Oh yeah.
So you're pretty invested and you have a lot of time to expend, but not everyone does.
True.
So the mistake that you could argue was made was the incentive was too great for the casual guys, because you people who choose, and again this is optional, to go down the road are making a significant investment. But then I think it's fair to say that the community felt that it bordered not on a choice anymore, but an obligation through that incentive of being able to, as it was proposed at the time, was to apply a buff to a chosen ship, a favorite ship between certain tiers. So you could maybe, I think it was from tier 6 and above, so you could make maybe your Warspite into a mid-tier Leviathan.
Right.
I think it's scale. So, but listen to the community, and World of Warships is keen to introduce this because, as we identified in the feedback on the forums and Reddit and all the other channels, CCs, and testers, the concept itself is one that's welcomed and that's good, and we agree, and we are committed to bringing it to the game because we feel for the long life health of the game it's great, for all the reasons I've just mentioned. But we need to work with the community to ensure that we don't upset an ecosystem, a very delicate one and balanced. We don't want to give that trauma, as I said, that was felt by the CV overhaul and, dare I say, rework. So we don't want to have to rework a rework or anything like that. We wanted to bring in something that was good for players, that players enjoyed. There was a way for them to spend some of their resources in game, and there's more things to be announced, more things to come. The players are listened to, and I wish there was a way that I could convince them just how much they are listened to, how much of my time, even just my own time, is spent reading, listening, watching. I can't comment on as much as I'd like. I can't always say the things I'd like, right. And that's probably a good thing sometimes. Other times it's quite sad it's quite saddening. I'd love to be able to tell someone, "Oh, dude, it's a great idea. In fact, it's going to get implemented in 2 updates, 3 updates from now." Or that concept you just described might be coming to the game in 6 months. Yeah, but I just can't. Um, and that's just the sad fact, and that's sometimes quite frustrating and hard to live with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, dude, I had something really awesome to say, and now I can't remember it. So there you go. Naval Training Center. It's like I said, for somebody who's been doing this for a long time, once you hit the tier 10, there's really no place else to go. So this is an opportunity for getting back into it. Obviously, we would like to see implementation of maybe possible more game modes. I know Bastion mode was a thing, and that was definitely a thing. And I know Arms Race has been with the last tier 10 Arms Race. It went over really well, I thought. I didn't see too many people complaining about it other than the people that didn't want to play the actual game mode and they wanted to sit back. I thought that was good, and I think it's to the point where it could go into the normal rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Arms Race Standard Battle in Epicenter now, and then Domination, those standards. Now we have 4 game modes that could possibly be in the actual main rotation. Is that something that you guys are looking for? Well, obviously you can't say it if it's a yes or no, but more game modes is. We have anything special coming up that you think, or what's the stance on on new game modes?
We're always looking at different ideas and things like that. So game modes is a possibility. I can't give timescales,
Right.
timelines. But definitely stick with us because you may well be pleasantly surprised in the future with different things coming out. We've got various things for various tastes. So obviously we're still working. People forget that we're still dealing with requests from the pipeline from months ago. So one of the stated objectives is obviously to get carriers back into operations, which I believe I actually don't play operations that much. I believe that was implemented recently.
I don't play a whole lot of them either.
No, I play them now and then. I haven't kept up with it.
My opinion of them is once you get 5 stars, there's really no reason to go back and play them.
Yeah, sure, but there are other people that live for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Live and breathe it. And that is their thing, and they love it. Carriers to be brought into competitive as well. This is, again, part of what we talked about earlier. So that's something that we need that needs to be done, clan battles and things, because there are players who need to be there. So, yeah, these things are being worked on. I think even in that specific case that you've just given me, I believe that's being worked on. So, yeah, definitely. Definitely keep your eye on DevBlog.
Yep, DevBlog. And you guys can find it over on the Facebook, World of Warships Facebook, and I believe they link you to wherever you need to go. Also, the Reddit thread will link it to you as well. All right, so there it is. Any last-minute comments on the Naval Training Center? There's a lot of questions about the Naval Training Center and how things are going to be implemented, and that's information that I don't think that we are going to be able to discuss here on how
we can't discuss now, but I can say that you won't have to wait long to have those questions answered and to ask more questions. I'm sure.
Yeah, there you go.
It's something that we want to work with the community in bringing about. It's a concept we'd like to introduce. I think for the most part, people will welcome it. Getting into the details, these are details. I think a lot was placed rightly so, maybe from definitely perception. Again, just the feels is an important factor, but people quite I can't say rightly or wrongly, people do get invested in details sometimes before they should, especially even with test ships, but they are important. So I get why people get all hung up and fussy about these things. But I think people forget just how malleable these things are, that they can be changed, and maybe they get too passionate. But that's, again, I'm not condemning that passion.
People.
Sure, there's different people, but the very fact that passion exists is a good thing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, people lose their shit. That's fine, and we're all adults. We all grow up and whatever. We can take people often say to me, "I don't know how you take the shit you do." Well, you don't. It is words. We're all thick-skinned, and to a point, you can be as cold to say, well, I'm bloody well paid to take it. Yeah, sure, absolutely I am. The point is, the reason I'm even hired is I believe, and I hope people would agree, that I can see past the emotion and actually see the truth that might be residing behind that emotion, which some people struggle to express. But often it doesn't take much empathy or sympathy to really actually understand where someone's really coming from. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they love this game and they want the best for it. And on that note, we're all united. So if we can maybe give some patience to those that deserve it, then we can get in the right direction.
Absolutely. I know. I know. The only thing, just assuming things here, they did say that there was going to be a new resource available. So once you regrind, now if that goes, you have to get back to the tier 10 to get that resource. We don't know yet, and even going further, how much of this resource do we need? We're going to need to grind it 7 times before we get the Colbert. We don't know. That's still up in the air.
No, yeah, these are details and figures that are going to come out. As it was announced, people are familiar with the snowflake system. So obviously when you introduce a new concept, you want to keep it simple, stupid. So it's easily communicated how you do it. People might roll their eyes at, another resource. Sure, we have events. We've done a lot of new content has been coming out where we have now it's Republic tokens and stuff. Similar name for the same concept. The snowflakes thing, I'm enjoying my knocking off my French flakes. It's this resource for regrinding your ships. That's just a concept that's easy for people to get behind. They understand, and it's a good way. It's effective way, and it's I think it should be an easy way to implement.
Well, bringing I'm going to connect this to the next point here. Bringing the Naval Training Center in also answers a question that I've always had of why wargaming has continued giving away 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the new lines when they come out, and this time coming around tier 9. I always thought it was a bad thing because if you're going to give some of it away, give away 3, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Give away the low tiers and then force people to play / free XP their way through. I thought that would be a better implementation because you're giving away 90% of your content. But now with Naval Training Center, it doesn't matter. That's gone out the window because you can always reset and go back and play the low ones if you want to.
Absolutely. To discuss sort of those sort of decisions, Evan, who people might be aware of, he's probably the better guy to talk to, a bit higher up than myself,
right.
And he's far more clever and wiser than I. And honestly, I'd give him my job and its specialization. Whilst I do talk to a lot of departments, I don't.
Well, I wasn't asking for clarification. I was just giving it.
No, sure, but you make a very good point. Yeah. Yes, and this is where sometimes I urge caution for some people. Is just in the scheme of things, in the long run, things will fit into place because there are people who are very good at their jobs, whose job it is to organize and plan roadmaps and organization structure to power this whole machine and have it headed in the right direction.
And it's a pretty powerful machine.
Do change. It is a big beast as well. It's a good one, and it's supported and it's doing well.
We just talk about how the warships team, how big that team is, and then you have to understand that there's tanks. And there's a whole nother thing, and
there's 500 people just in this office alone in Petersburg, and then you throw out all the other little World of Warships offices that dotted around the world.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of them.
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's go into the last topic here real quick, guys. We're hanging out with Earl Grey, my man over in St. Petersburg, man. Hopefully you're enjoying the show, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to come over here because I know it's late over there. We'll get through this as fast as possible. We'll get a couple of questions, and then we'll get you out of here. Italian cruisers. Cruisers are a brand new thing that have just been announced. Now these are characterized by no AA button and no radar. Guys, y'all get that out of your head right now. No AA button, no hydro, no radar, so there's no gimmick there. But we do have the gimmick of the rolling smoke, which is the full speed rolling smoke, which is not unlike the Perth, but you don't have to go a quarter speed to stay in it. Long range, low concealment, slow pedos. and you're going to have a long reload, high alpha damage, semi AP, no fires because it's not HE, which let's see, how do I attribute that? It's like a pure IFHE cruiser without the fires.
Maybe that's the same.
That's the only thing I can attribute it to. Longer reloads, probably higher alpha damage. Not unlike the not unlike the buff that the Japanese DDs got. Now their HE hits like a truck, and I love it. This is kind of the concept for this. There's going to be starting out. Obviously, we don't know when, but tier 1 through 10, and you get the smoke starting at tier 5 and above.
Well, given the dev blog and the usual timings, it shouldn't be too long before it hits even public test in some form. If you think about when things are announced and they're released, obviously when things go on super test, it generally goes in dev blog. So page, definitely keep an eye on dev blog if you don't already. Reddit's probably the easiest way to do it, and obviously CCs. So make sure you're following Savannah Mike.
That's right. Go ahead.
He'll keep you posted because I'll be the one that will be giving him the warning, so he can be the first to inform you. Where are we going? Deblong changes and the Italian cruisers. I want to say so much. One thing I can do is roll back a little bit to something we can talk about.
Right.
You mentioned about the fuel smoke. People won't know. And I can't lay all credit at the doorstep or blame even. We shall see after testing. But we consulted with CCs a good while back for some cool tricks and traits and features for Italian cruisers. As we did at the CC Summit for the Paolo Emilio, we got the CC regions to come up with some concepts.
That's the Italian destroyer.
Yes, the tier 10. So we're not consulted per se because we've got to be careful here. We can't say, oh yeah, here we are, CC's made this, because
it's all your fault. Guys, I want you to know right now, if it comes out and it's a turd, it's not my fault because I was not invited.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't. Someone has a bad impression of the ship and it's a Venom's fault.
Yeah, it's all my fault.
Yeah, so that's not the case. But we wanted to include CCs, and the feedback from CCs was that it was very much enjoyed that feedback was able to be given, that sort of round of brainstorming. Obviously, we the same systems go in place with the dev team and testing and balancing guys are still involved, but just a little sort of investment and involvement into upcoming content, which of course CCs will be heavily involved in. And that's not to say that we wanted to bribe them into being positive about them. Like, well, I came up with this fuel smoke idea, so I'll damn well defend it, even if it's yeah. I think people understand me well enough now to know what I'm saying there. So we've got the semi-armor piercing, which again I saw the community go, what?
Yeah.
Sort of about. There's some excitement. There's some intrepidation, sort of some suspiciousness, as there always is. I think it's going to be. I like cruisers, and cruisers are my main class that I enjoy the most. So I think the Italians are bringing something in that the Royal Navy cruisers did with their strange choice of ammunition with improved armor, penetration angles, and all this. So they brought a unique flavor. I think it's refreshing for people to know that it's not going to have the Swiss Army knife sort of utility as perhaps like a Worcester and those similar ones. We've had some unique destroyers in the form of French destroyers. Despite all the criticism and fears that the community had, I think they're being very well accepted and enjoyed. I've enjoyed blapping people that don't understand them, and then I've not enjoyed getting burnt down and being battered by the people that do understand them.
Right.
So they just use that as another example of something is just a little bit different that maybe takes one strength or aspect a little bit further than most, but pays for it in another way, which again is a challenge for people to master and enjoy. And I think the Italians are going to bring that. And of course, they got the candy cane as well for us all to enjoy.
I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting dynamic when you bring something like this in. Or I know we were testing out the Friesland recently,
Yeah.
and that boat I've really enjoyed it, and the reason I've really enjoyed it because it is the most fleet escort ship specification that I have ever seen in this game, and that gives it
Mhm.
an entire new way to play and an entire different mentality that you have to go in and play this thing other than just okay, let's dock it and then torp because it ain't got torps, people, and which I think is fine, and for what it is, it does very well. Uh, I want the Italian cruisers to be role specific and do exceptionally well at that, and then be okay at everything else. You know, it's kind of not much of a jack of all trades as say, like the
Mhm.
American battleships are probably the most jack of all trade battleship out there, uh,
Mhm.
and you know you have very role specific Kremlin, and you have very role specific
Mhm.
Yamato, you have very role specific GK, as opposed to I'm more attracted to the jack of all trade type things. But I've
Mhm.
really enjoyed playing the Friesland role specific, and I can't wait to see these and get them out there, and hopefully they feel a lot better than the Baba Abruzzi in the other one because they go out there and they fire their guns and they just feel like they're balanced, and balance doesn't necessarily, you know, they're not overpowered, blah blah blah. They're just a real
Mhm.
nice middle of the road boats. Kind of
Yeah,
enjoyed, yeah.
and as we've touched on at the very beginning, and yet in certain scenarios they seem to shine. Like I was surprised I did so well in ranked in them, but obviously I can't speak for the whole player base. It's just
Right.
I'm just one player. But if you find yourself in a position where the conditions are right for a certain ship, then yeah, it can be surprising what you can achieve in them.
Trying to, and then it becomes how can I force that situation over and over and over again,
Yeah, yeah.
and that then that in that instinct that the better players are going to do very well on them, and the ones that are more experienced or have, you know, 10, 15, 20, 30 games in it are going to be able to recognize that earlier. I think it's
Hmm. And
that's why I
read the
love
map.
this game, man. Yep, and map, yeah, read the map.
Mhm.
So there's some name changes at tier 8, 9, and 10. The Amalfi, the
Yes.
Brindisi, and the Venzia are the new
Hmm.
names. So
Hmm.
that's pretty cool. And let's just go over these names real quick. At tier 1, we have the Eritrea. I have no idea. I'm going to butcher these, and that's fine. Nino Bixio, Tranto, Giussano, uh, Monte Cuccoli, Trento, Zara, and then, of course, the others. But starting at the Monte Cuccoli, the smokes
Hmm.
start. So overall impressions. I mean, obviously, you
Just a
can't go
quick
into
tip
too
when
many
you say
details.
those names to make sure you get flawless pronunciation. Say it however you like, but just do that whilst you do
Oh
it.
yeah, do that. Yeah. Well, I have a mustache,
Montecuccoli.
so it works. All right, so we have
Just
tier one's the Bobbida Boopity. We have tier two is the
yep.
Bobbida Boopity, Beebity Bobbity at 3. Yep. Bobbida Boopity. There you
Yeah,
go.
people don't care
We
then.
have
Even
spaghetti. We have
Italians
meatball.
respect it.
We have salami. And
Yeah.
what are your overall impressions of this line? Obviously, you've a little bit more knowledge than I do, but just as a general player, what do you think? How do you think these are going to be received, and how do you think the gameplay is going to go?
I haven't actually gotten to play them yet. But like you, I'm kind of in the dark. I've only really seen Devblog. And sorry, but being the person I am, numbers don't mean much to me. I have
Yeah,
to actually get in them and feel it. You can tell me it's 152 millimeters and it goes this fast, but yeah, and it actually in a very real way, as you yourself know, with certain test ships, it could have the best sort of looking stats in the book, but you get out there and for just some reason it something doesn't work
just
for you,
doesn't work for you. Yeah.
or it
Like
doesn't act
the Bliss,
as you expect.
the Blizz Khalifa, man, that thing I just can't. I've been playing that game. I've been playing that boat forever, and I just can't get it to work. I know it's a good boat. I mean, I've watched a load of
Mm.
people, but after all this time I've been playing it, I just can't get it to work for me.
So I think I'm not alone in my desire that the Italians are going to be sort of fast Maseratis on the waves, and they're going to obviously the semi armor piercing sounds like it could be pretty devastating. In the right circumstances against the right ships.
Destroyers, broadside
Um,
cruisers. It's gonna do. It's gonna
yeah,
do just high
I
alpha
think in
damage to
Devlog it
battleships. I mean,
mentioned
it's gonna
about
go good.
superstructures and things, but again, I can't accurately sort of theorize on these sorts of things without actually getting my hands on it. Um,
Yeah.
I know the sort of spirit that I'm looking for, and I'm hoping that'll be captured.
I do as well.
I think players are just the same as me in that respect. They want something like that. Then there's the names. Then there's the Second World War attachment, sentimentality, and things like this. I want to be impressed. People agree that they are good-looking ships. They're modelled beautifully. So that's the feels that we need, not just the spread.
They do a very good job and very painstakingly processed. And I'm going to tout on wargaming here, so don't kill me, guys, in the chat here. Some of the things that I think that wargaming does well: events are always done very well. Halloween event, the sub event, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But the sub event, the space events, the Rogue Wave event was probably my favorite event that they've done, because it have taken out a lot of the RNG factor of the regular game, the random mode, and put it into more of a skill-based game mode, which I absolutely enjoyed, because I was outplaying that guy, trying to get those 4-kilometer rumble torps in there on people, which that was my boat. That was my favorite. So, but they've always done that well. And one thing that they've always done well, and I don't think they get a lot of credit for, is the camos. The space camos, the Halloween camos, they just look fantastic, and I kind of wish that they would, do more camos. I mean, I'd gladly buy the 8,000 doubloon camos for this and that if I'm going to play that boat a lot, and I want it to look good and be aesthetically.
Well, you're making another point that forgive me for backtracking, but a lot of people are saying, "Oh yeah, I'd happily grind an entire line for a unique camo."
Yeah.
Well, would you though? I'm not sure. Visuals, people often liken the prestige. Now, I personally thought a camo is one thing, but what if I could get like a pure golden ship?
Exactly, gold and black, gold with black inlays, or silver and black inlays.
Because black ships are pretty cool, but is that really commensurate to the investment? And
I know a majority of the people are going to be like, "Oh, that's for a camo, man. That ain't worth it."
Yeah, even if you do get a gold Kremlin, as cool as that seems and sounds,
I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of hard for me coming from, I played a lot of Call of Duty when I was growing, and and getting those gold, getting all those headshots for the gold and doing all those challenges to get the gold. That was the thing. Plus, while you're doing that, you're also prestiging and rolling over your account over and over again, so you can get to that high deal. I always thought camos were the thing, and shit, I've got every camo for the Texas that there is. Just I mean, but anyway.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool, but I just don't know that. Yeah, they do camos. World Warships does do camos very well. Some of them are a bit out there. Some of them are a bit wacky, but I think there's something for everyone's taste. And definitely that modeling. I still love the Lexington with the feathered planes.
Oh man, the Halloween camos, man! I'm glad I asked for those. I actually had to ask for those, and I was very well rewarded. People love them. I love the bats on the shokaku, the hiru, or the hack with the space ones, the little space planes. Those things look amazing, and people always comment on them. Yeah, exactly. People always comment on them. Man, that thing looks awesome. Where can you get that? I'm like, wait for Halloween event. Maybe they'll bring them back. I don't know. I always enjoyed it. Guys, we're hanging out with my man Earl Grey. Now we're going to come up to the Q&A session here. I know we're kind of a little bit over time here. So tell me how much time.
Okay, my fault.
Oh no, it's all good.
Carry on.
So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that we talked today, or anything in general, at ServantofMyK right there. And we've already answered that question. Does Wargaming, they are required to play 50 games a week in the game. So yes, they do play their own game. So you guys go ahead. We'll start with this first question here, man. Flight 21 says, CC, carrier survivability. How does 5 seconds on fire make sense?
Those are balance questions there. How does it make sense? Well, it might not, but the whole point, if I recall back from 8.0, because this was quite an early change that came on. So there was decentivizing carrier sniping, things like this with it. It was, I can't pretend that all the changes either I know all the reasonings or even I might, understand them. I just think it certainly was something I didn't quite understand, but it makes it kind of it fits in the game. It seems to me, from what I've said, it's not something that I know when you've hunted CVs and you've set them on fire. It's something that you're like, 5 seconds and it's gone. But I don't know. I sort of adapted as a surface player ship, and then as a carrier player, when I was bombing them with HE and setting them on fire, it wasn't a viable tactic to burn him down anymore. Sure enough, when I've been playing it in game, they pretty soon, if they're spotted, then get absolutely twatted by battleships with the armor piercing. So I've never seen it as an issue that they do only burn it as for 5 seconds. The biggest one that I'm just going on in my mind is that it was it was all automatic consumables. Again, the decision was made that wasn't something that players should do. And actually, I'm quite grateful. I don't.
People are when they're generally getting shot at or spotted, they're out in their planes anyway, so they're not really paying attention to their CV at that point in time.
I'm a simple little creature, so when I'm flying my planes around, I enjoy lining up the drop on the DD, and I do admit I have a perverse, sadistic pleasure in making a DD's life hell when I'm in a CV. So I don't. If I hear the fire going off, it's okay that it automatically does it. So if you think of the trade-off, so you've got the automatic consumables, which then have cooldowns. Given that you didn't have the player's input on that, is it fair that the fire should burn for full duration? So it's kind of the weighing up of these two evils and picking the lesser road of them all. So if you're going to have the quality of life improvement as it was implemented with the automatic consumables, is it fair to then punish the player if the computer then turns it on the first fire? So I think that's kind of a nitpick. I get it that it might not make sense in all things, but from my perspective and how I've seen it, it's not a big problem.
Tennis 71 says, ask about the consumable keys and why can't they be uniform across the board? And I actually answered this question during the pre-show this is my take on it, is that some boats don't have that key. Some boats don't have hydro, and they have other things to put in that slot. So I don't think a uniform would be fine because, okay, well, it's now I've got hydro on G, and then T is something else, and I don't know. It's a big whole long mess. So I think it's as long as they're in the same spot every time, I think it's fine for me.
I agree. It can get confusing, but there's a case recently. I think Sirocco had a kind of mix-up of its consumables, and one of the changes where it was then for the French line of destroyers, it was uniform that the consumables were put in. But I agree as a player, because given I'm the person who jumps around all classes of ships, playing all sorts of them, I mash them up and I get them. I use engine boost when I'm meant to use heal all the time. So. I try and take I try and take the time.
I fat finger a lot of things, smoke and heal at the same time. Sorry,
I had
swallowed water down the wrong pipe. All right, excuse me.
Rookie mistake. Were you trying to think and breathe at the same time?
No, I was just trying not to die. That's
survival mode.
Scully says, "Can we make a button to remove signals all at once for the love of God?"
Yeah, this is another thing that was this common request that has been forwarded that I can only trust is in the pipeline. Obviously, that with other universal improvements that everyone asks for.
I know the next caveat to that is signal filters and camo filters.
Sure, that would be the next thing. So people will happily enjoy the open all containers button that was added. And then they'll quickly move on to the next request. That's not to dismiss that request. I agree. Having templates as well, where you could have like a battleship captain signal loadout that you could maybe pre-load. Okay, I've unlocked my Montana. I've just come from the Iowa. Maybe it's a similar build in my mind. Good, cool. That's USBB signal template. just mount all those. Yeah, I agree, and especially as someone who tests a lot of ships, and sometimes I'm like, oh god, here I have to go through the modules again. Click, 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 click. But hey, that's part of it. Those are known. Those ideally things are going to do it, but as the player base very quickly remind us all, there are more important things that need dealing with before we put the little polish.
I guess the best way that I've heard, some Octavian says, look, there's a lot of fires going, and that one's on low, or something like that. That it's way back there. It is a thing, but we have more priorities or something.
Yeah, there's a few leaks that we got our fingers in, but
Jim to the Jazz says platoons and tanks get XP bonuses and credit buffs. Why can't it happen in World of Warships?
Well, it can happen. You know, anything can happen. It's just, is it needed? And I disagree that it's needed. The grind is far better than tanks. The credit economy is far more ridiculous.
I mean, going back and watching Mijesh has done his day one account where he grinds one particular line over, and he's getting. And obviously, Mijesh is a fantastic player, so he's got a little bit of advantage that way. But he's getting through tier 10 in 100 games.
Yeah, try and do that in tanks. I agree, it's an incentive as well to get playing with div mates, but generally the reward with the pace of warships and stuff, I think there's enough reward for divisioning with your friends as it is. Throwing camos, flags, you can quickly reduce the grind up there. If the grind and credits are a concern, there's so many premium ships that can be obtained for free with relative investment of time that they're a good credit and
good stuff.
Yeah, and you can generate some decent credits with these things, even with non-premium ships if you camo and flag it up. Yeah, and then have a decent round. Maybe get lucky. You can print some credits out there. So there's wants and then there's needs, and that might be a nice thing to have, but I don't think it's a need. But what do I know? The next dev blog could be saying, "Hey, we're now introducing a buff for divisions."
I know one thing I've always pushed is play in divisions. Because your win rate will go up massively if you play in divisions. Because my mentality, you have 11 or 12 people on the team. Would you rather rely on 11 morons or 9 morons and 2 people that you're probably talking to that you guys can play around and do things together? That's maybe that's a bad mentality, but that's my mentality on it. And
that's sage advice. That's good advice. That's brilliant. But I'm that masochist who I feel like I adapt my play style because I'm in a division, and I feel kind of constricted. That not that there's someone watching me, but that if I die now, I've just got to watch the rest of the game. So I'm not going to take this risk. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to play more sensibly, but that's boring for me. I'm like, no, I'm going to push this flank, take this cap, and I'm going to take them all. Oh no, there's like 2 battleships around that island I had no idea existed. And then it's great. I can go back to port, and I'm not feeling guilty. But you're right. Yeah, sure, my win rate would go up. Sure, but.
If that's what you care about, I'm not a big.
Well, sadly, actually, now I can't because I'm at work, so it's too restrictive for me to say. I often get messages in game, "Hey, can you have a div together?" I'll be like, "Dude, I'd love to, but I can be."
I have time for one game, and then I'm gone for an hour.
Literally, it'll literally be a quick game.
Blue KQ says, I generally find that the things in the game are generally not as bad as some people say, nor as good as some people say. I tend to, there's a lot of boats out there that I disagree with, or I think that have kind of been power crept out there, and I tend to. German battleships is one. Gneisenau, I think, is just the steaming pile of nonsense that should that needs help, but people love that boat. I mean, I know a lot of people that love it, but so take whatever you hear here on this channel as a grain of salt. And that's just my opinion. Go out there and play it for yourself. Which is better over here? Well, IFHE is better. Well, I've played the Atlanta for so long without IFHE that is it necessary? No. Does it help? Yes. But is it necessary? No. Go out there and play it for yourself. Figure out what works for you.
Mm-hmm. You might enjoy those fires that you're starting. You might not get many pens, but.
Yeah. In the end, I believe it's just a wash, really. Samster Redclaw, my friend who only played CVs for the RTS style, they all left the game. Well, sorry about their luck. They're missing out on some pretty good content right now, actually.
But they have my empathy and sympathy. Basically, we pulled the World of Warships pulled the rug out of the players' feet.
Hmm.
Those dedicated. But what's sadly the truth is that they were such a small cohort, and the RTS game style was too jarring for the rest of the players that it wasn't accessible. The power seeing, and there's a reason why they loved the RTS. Let's face it. Let's not actually kid each other either. There were certain content creators that I can think of as well who did like dominating because
Oh
they
yeah,
were so good,
made
and
themselves look
that's
good.
fine. It made them look
It was
good.
that
They
ego boost,
founded
right?
a business on it, and it
Yeah.
was their income. So we ripped that carpet out of those people's feet. That it was done with the belief and the continuing hope that it was for the better, the greater good. Sadly, those players will go elsewhere to other RTS games, and that's sad. They'll be missed. It's a shame we couldn't find another class
A
and ship
happy
and play
medium or
style.
something. Yeah.
I was always in awe of players like Fem who could just play a single class. First of all, master it, but second of all, just limit themselves to one class and excel in it. I was like, wow, if only I could do that, maybe I'd be far more competent in half the ships that I play.
I know. I've never. People always ask, "What do you play? What do you do?" And I'm a cruiser main. I'm a battleship main. Whatever. I've
Mm.
never classified myself as anything because I tend to play everything, and I tend to try to play everything as average as possible because I know if I'm average, I'm still better than half of the other players. But that's another story for another
Yes.
time. Jim to the Jams also says a friend of mine and I've been playing reroll accounts and see how the documented lowest damage boats play. It is reflective on how new players gravitate towards the easier boats to play and suffer in high skill ceiling boats. We are trying to avoid a confirmation bias by educating the masses on how to play has been largely left to the CCs. Is this intentional or is it wargaming relying on CCs to do that level of education? Now, as a CC, they don't push anything. I add, I do what I want to. Basically, if I have content, I can pretty much say within the limits or boundaries or whatever. Uh, I can say whatever I want to. If I don't like it, I can very vocal about what I don't like.
What limits and boundaries are you talking about?
No limit, no limit, sir. No limit. Don't put me
Yeah,
below.
that's better.
There you
That's
go.
better.
Well, I mean, with the
Within the CC code of
within
conduct.
yeah the code of conduct. There you go. But they have I have took it upon myself to be educational and tongue-in-cheek humor, and I take all the information that I get and I make it to where I can understand it, and if I can understand it, then I can help teach it. That's all the content on the channel. It's all the content on the YouTubes. They didn't put it on me. I chose to do that myself.
So there's a few ways to look at it. On one aspect, they've got the how it works videos. Now they don't teach you how to play the foot attacker, but you might play the foot attacker a lot better once you've watched the how it works videos. Sadly, only a small percentage of the player base will ever watch those videos.
True.
You think about the player base that watch CCs. How many times have you clicked the video tutorial that pops up in the client when you've played those reroll accounts? Because I know when I've reinstalled, there's been video tutorials that come up.
And you'd be
Now
like,
that
I know all this
failing,
stuff.
yeah, I click it because you have to, and then I quickly escape from it because and I'm sure 90% of people do the same. That's possibly the game's failing. It would be nice to introduce tutorial
Well,
modes.
I don't even think that it's the game's failing. I think that it's the players failing for not wanting to learn. And why is it? Now I'm getting kind of salty here because why is it on Wargaming to teach these people how to play? They have to man up, nut up, and do it themselves. They have to learn.
Uh,
They have to go
I
through the
think
grind.
you're from the school of hard knocks, though.
Nah.
So we came to the game and we got to tier 5. We got our ship pushed in and we jumped back in, and eventually we made it up to tier 10. Actually, it took me a good long while. As I say, I went up all the lines and quite happily, I've been quite happy at tier 8, or I was for a long time. I just sort of incidentally managed to get to tier 10. I think the Zhao was my first one, but I knew through my own limitation that I wasn't really of the caliber to exist happily at tier 10, and I was losing credits, and that's natural selection. So I'd happily go down to tier 8 and stay there. and keep grinding out the other lines. Wasn't especially bothered. Yeah, okay. Now we've had the changes where you've got the account limitation at the beginning for new players. The new player journey has changed a lot since the beginning. I agreed that some level of tutorial would be nice to implement, but then again, don't forget how much of the game itself serves as a tutorial. You discussed about how sort of tier 4 they tried to limit carriers so that it couldn't seal club as much. Obviously, carriers have since changed, but the RTS ones were limited in strafing and manual dropping. That had consequences for it. But the point is that through, I'd probably say even to tier 6 is probably a new player's domain and learning. Tier 7 isn't too hard to get through, but to bust through your tier 8 and into tier 9 takes a bit of time, and you should have learned a thing. Yeah, it does.
I know.
So
With this Russian battleship integration into the game, I started at 6 is where I ended up starting at, and then worked my way up. Got to the 7. Sign up was fantastic. Got to the 8, and I played 14 games, my friend, and I was at. I free XP'd the modules to get it to where all I had to do was gain the experience, right? So it was a big, 30,000, 40,000, the free experience hit or more, and then played 14 games flagging up and camoed up, and I was in tier 9. And I did the same thing for tier 9, and I played 11 games and was 122,000 experience in, and then rank season happened, so I just free XP'd the rest of it to get to the Kremlin. So it's very easy. I think it's more on the player to take the initiative to learn how to and fail. It's okay to be bad at this game as long as you're willing to learn what you did wrong and analyze what you're doing. And if you can do that, then you're going to start making big inroads at getting better.
Some people don't. That's the other thing. There is some tolerance needed. Some people are going to YOLO in. Who's that meme player who just sort of YOLOs in his Shimakaze, dies, rinses, and repeats?
Are you on?
There's an amazing account. Yeah, I don't know if you remember it. He was a meme on NA. It's fantastic. He's like a legend around there. People thought it was a bot account because it just looked like a bot was YOLOing in, but no, we analysed it. It's a human player. We found a human player. We looked into it on Reddit who's got 20,000 games in the Hermlin.
Oh my god, that's tier 1.
And played one game in the V25. It was a loss, so went back to his Hermlin. He had a 0% win rate.
All he plays.
Yeah.
Wow.
Horses for courses.
I guess.
No interest in going up.
Yeah. Wow. So I've never seen that guy.
No, because he's at tier 1 in his Hermlin.
Yeah. It's been a long time. when they took the AP off of the Black Swan and they took AP off of tier 1, I just kind of quit playing it. I mean, after we rank out, we do our obligatory Mikasa game after every rank out season, and we don't stay there very often unless I open up for total request live. Okay, what do you guys want to see? I'll play it, which we do quite a bit. It's every once in a while we'll get down there into lower tiers, but it's been a while since we played tier 1. Just a few more questions here because I know you're busy. Krieger says, question for Mr. Gray: when will he finally finish on his stream painting we've been waiting for a while?
Mr. Putin is waiting at home. I will finish him when. That's a really good question. As I say, I work 10 till 7, so I get home and usually it's around 8 o'clock. Cook dinner, and you might finish eating around 9 o'clock, and then jump in the shower and head to bed. Maybe watch Stranger Things. I was watching Peaky Blinders before. Yes, it's a long day.
Watch
time, but I will.
If you got Amazon Prime, man, watch The Boys. It's really good. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I saw Mingles video. He talked about The Boys. I've got Netflix. Amazon isn't really a thing in Russia.
Oh, all right. Well,
obviously Amazon Prime I could probably access the streaming, but it isn't really a thing. But I do hope to. I do hope.
Let's see. Fry Guy says, has Wargaming measured the damage output with the radical change in HE dive bombers, and is there going to be buffs in order to offset the DPM change of this? Sounds like a dev question to me.
Yeah, that's probably Ivan Kamarov's domain. So I think are we talking about Midway? Midway is generally known as its HE dive bomber strength.
Well, let's put it this way. We were in a tier 8 game in tier 6s, and the Lexington came over on the West Virginia and dropped 20,000 damage in 2 drops on it. I was
nice.
like, wow.
Yeah, 10,000.
I was like, wow, that's pretty ridiculous. And he shot down no planes throughout the whole thing, man. It was like, wow. At times it seems to be a bit overwhelming, but I know unless I'm playing it, then the CVs are god tier. When I'm playing it, man, I'm terrible.
That's it. Yeah, do better. And then that said,
Learn how to play.
Torpedoes are pretty anemic. I know Midway earned itself a reputation in clan battles, but things have changed since then. Sorry, clan battles, King of the Sea.
Right.
Obviously, that was a very public sort of display of CVs. Certainly, excellent CV players. Down in those other tiers, tier 6 West Virginia against tier 8 Lexington, it's always going to be brutal with those decks. I mean, how many times do you get shat on in a surface ship by a battleship 2 tiers higher than you?
Only when I'm making mistakes. Lancer Rule says, how hard will it be under this new system in Naval Training Center to get the Ohio, for instance? 1 line, multiple lines, multiple seasons. I guess let me just stop that question real quick and just ask this question is, are we going to be able to do multiple lines at the same time? Or is it you can only do 1 line at a time? Because that makes a difference for some people.
So keeping to what's already in the public domain, I think as announced, so you get a season, and in that season you're given a choice of select branches. Let's say British cruisers, I think it's nations. So let's say British and Russian, maybe. And you can choose a line within that nation to unlock for that season. So you have a set season to unlock it. You can grind it out, I think, as long as it takes. That's not a problem. It's just
can't
you're limited
until that season rolls around.
Yeah, until that season, and you have that set time to do it. Yes, I believe you can redo the same line over and over. Of course, before because you might have your favorite line with ships that you like, so
makes it easy
that's
to grind.
Okay. Yeah, the next season though might be French battleship. France and
Germany.
Japan. So maybe you can't, but because remember, the idea is to get players to go back down through lines to ships that they've forgotten. So I can't talk specifics on the details or rotation, which ones it will be, but it's likely that sure, your favorite nation, of course, it's UK and Royal Navy. It will come back in a further one. There's more details to be released soon, both on AA changes and what was known as NTC. We shall see what changes they are and how they come out. So keep an eye on DevBlog and definitely on CC channels such as Sir Venom's for all the latest information on that. But I think obviously the old system was that you'd get a buff, a tier 1 buff, let's call it, and then a tier 2 buff for the second grind. I believe the revised system that Sub announced in the PSA on Reddit was that we'd be changing those proposed buffs in line with community suggestions, that unique rewards, which would be Colbert and then Ohio, would be following. So that's as I understand it at this point in time.
That's
all subject to change.
That's the way I've understood it as well. And the last question here that I have, there was more, but I know we're running short on time, so this one can be answered pretty easily.
Yeah, okay. You can fire questions unless you have to go.
No, I don't have to go. I'm good. Finning, can you ask iearlgrey why storms and cyclones are in the game? They tend to ruin games by keeping players from getting adequate damage and really F over cruisers without radar, without hard radar, or without. They screw over the cruisers without radar very hard, I think is what he meant. Personally, I've lost more games because of cyclones, because of we need this kill, and then you go rushing in there. Oh my God, there's 4 other people on the other side of it. I've lost more games that way, and that's my own personal personal thing. But anyway, what do you think? What do you think about the storms and the cyclones, and what do you think about them?
They've got well, cyclones have been around a good while, if I recall. I wasn't around when the decision was made to implement cyclones, and I can't say that I was privy to the executive sort of decision behind adding in storms. From my impression of them, storms were visually fantastic. I think they rolled out over a couple of updates because there were some issues with the implementation. I know there's the RNG. I'm not. I've seen in the community, obviously, the complaints that might happen with that extra level of RNG, but I tend to. It doesn't really seem to factor too much. It might frustrate me sometimes when visibility goes down to 8 kilometers and I'm chasing that DD that managed to slip away from me. It's not something that really factors in to my thoughts, and I can't answer the question as to why they're in the game. The other question is why not. It adds some diversity. It changes from the normal sort of rhythm of things. It also adds a new sort of aspect to a map that you're familiar with. It adds those opportunities for a DD to make a hit and run attack, which might be good for the DD. So yeah, I guess if I were to ponder a guess as to what was behind those guys' decision making, it was blowing fresh air into familiar maps.
I've played upwards to 14. I don't know. I was somewhere just below 14,000 games in randoms, and that's not including all the other games, but for ring seasons and all that. And one thing that I've said, I've done a total of 52 24-hour streams over the course of 5 years. Right? That's over 5 years. And the easiest 24-hour streams that I can do are on ships. I've done them on Diablo. I've done them on Path of Exile. I've done them on all these different games.
Yeah.
And the easier ones is this game, simply for the fact that no two games are the same. So it adds that extra little bit of exactly just what you said, Alex, a little bit of fresh air, and makes you think. And yes, there are some disadvantages, especially if you're winning. You're winning this game, and now you have to change that winning strategy. And if you're losing, it does kind of pull you back up from when you're losing sometimes, like, okay, well, now let's group up here and then let's roll as a death ball. And that tends to be the smartest idea. Get back, if you got division, roll back with your division, don't go by yourself. And then that way you have different shots. You can one guy can push here, one guy can go 30 degrees off his port and push that way, and then another guy can go across the other side of the cap and still maintain visual sight lines on each other. And it just people, the way people think about the game. I lost here. Wow, it's messed up. I think that goes with a lot of even myself. I lost. God damn it, this thing's broken. Instead of what did I do?
And again, in the perspective of things, it only it doesn't hit me that often. Like from my experience in the game, I don't come across cyclones and storms with enough regularity for it to be a bugbear of mine. There might be players that are unlucky where it happens very frequently to them, but then throw in the fact that do you also complain about the times when it goes your way? When you get the ambush on someone and an amazing damage. So yeah, let's say the original answer to the question. I don't actually know the full reason behind it.
That kind of leads me into my last little comment here. The smoke change that happened, I was going to say recently, but it's been a while since the smoke change happened, to where you can, at the stuff like the Kudersoff 7.7 kilometer detection outside of his smoke, and so on and so on. I always thought that the better smoke change would have been to implement the cyclone effect on that smoke, so the person at 8 kilometers can see you. The person at 8.1 kilometers wouldn't be able to see you, and he would have to come in. That would push the game, bring the game a little bit closer together, and so on and so on. So now that guy is spotting at 7 kilometers, that dude at 18 sitting there doing nothing is able to get the shots off of you. I didn't think that was a good reward, but that was my take on this whole smoke change, the way they should have gone with it. But either way, well, guys, that is it. I want to thank Earl Grey. I know you're a busy, busy man. I know it's, what is it, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock over there now? I do appreciate
10 past 8. No,
Yeah.
it's not too bad.
No, it's just past 8 o'clock. I want to thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, gracing us with your beautiful presence here. If you guys don't know who Earl Grey is, there he is right there. Say hi to him. Is there anything out there that you would like to promote or anything right now? Now's the time where I let the guests to promote their stuff.
If you fancy a laugh, you might want to visit my Instagram, where you can see my Instagram leg that I posted from Tallinn in Estonia this weekend. Aside from that, no, I'm at peace with my behind-the-scenes role, facilitating the awesome content creation of our amazing guys like Sir Venom here, ensuring these wheels remain oiled. Yeah. So keep supporting the streamers like Sir Venom IK.
All right. Again, thank you very much. Again, I can't tell you how supportive that the community has been for me, and getting support as a community contributor from wargaming has been eye-opening and very, very nice. So I do appreciate your time taking out for me. Maybe we can do it again sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
Maybe episode 60.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll just have it
well
every
done.
30.
Keep it up.
There you go. All right. I am Sir Venom IK. You guys, we're going to have it over on the YouTube channel a little bit later on tonight. If you guys are here, twitch.tv/Sir Venom IK, we will be cutting down and coming up for our normal stream time at about 7 o'clock p.m. U.S. Central Time. You guys can hit me up on the Twitter at Sir_Venom_IK. You guys go hit up Earl Grey at Earl Grey TV over on the Twitters, and you guys can ask him whatever. You can bombard him with whatever questions that you want to bombard him with there. There you go. Whenever, wherever, and he might actually answer them. So anyway, that's it. Across Your Bow episode 30 is now in the books. Again, big shout out to everybody for showing up today. And if you guys missed it, it'll be out on the YouTube sometime here in a couple of hours. Salutes, my friends. Thank you very much for watching. Earl, again, thank you so much, dude. I do appreciate it. Say goodbye, man.
Bye.
Yeah, all right.